Hello, friends. Welcome to the Sleep Aliens. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. You ever have to work the night shift in the middle of nowhere? I mean, real nowhere. Not the suburbs at night or even rural farmland. I mean areas where your headlights are the only source of artificial illumination within a 40-mile radius. It was like that working security for the oil fields in the Uinta Basin down in Utah. I did that for 3 years. 3 years working 12-hour days driving between the pump stations, checking on the equipment to make sure no one was ripping off the copper wires. The valley is weird during the daytime. Sagebrush and red rock as far as the eye can see. But at night it's different. My name's Jasper. I was 24 when this happened. Young enough to need the money, old enough to know when something wasn't right. It was a Tuesday in October 2019. Cold enough that I wore my heavy Carhartt jacket, but not cold enough for snow yet. I'd already made my first round of the northern section, checking wells 17 through 23. Everything normal. Pumps chugging away like they always did. That rhythmic thump, thump, thump that becomes white noise after a while. Around 11 p.m., I got a radio call from my supervisor, Marcus. One of the pumps at well 14 had stopped transmitting data. Probably just a sensor issue, but I needed to drive out there and check it manually. Well, 14 sat about 12 miles from the main office, accessed by a dirt road that turned into barely more than tire tracks in the scrub. No cell service, no lights except what you brought with you. The kind of place where if your truck broke down, you'd be walking until sunrise. I headed out, my F-250's headlights cutting through the darkness. The road was rough as hell, full of potholes and washboard sections that rattled your teeth. I had my thermos of coffee, my flashlight, and my clipboard. Standard night in the basin. But about 3 miles from well 14, something changed. The air felt different. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the only way I can describe it. Like the pressure dropped, or the temperature shifted, but neither of those things actually happened. It was more like the quality of the darkness itself changed. And then the wind stopped. Completely stopped. In the Uinta Basin, there's always wind at night. Always. Even on calm days, there's at least a breeze moving the sagebrush around, making the pump jacks creak slightly on their pivots. But right then, everything went still. Dead still. Like the whole world was holding its breath. I slowed down, something in my gut telling me to pay attention. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was another truck parked at the well site. A white light, bright and steady, maybe a couple 100 feet ahead, but as I got closer, I realized the light wasn't on the ground. It was above the well. Not by much, maybe 40, 50 feet up. Just hovering there, completely motionless. Bathing well 14 in this pale white light that seemed to have no source, no beam, no spotlight effect. The light just existed in a sphere around this thing. I stopped my truck about 100 yards out. Killed the engine but left the headlights on. The light didn't react to my presence at all. It just hung there, silent and still, while my heart started hammering in my chest. I grabbed my phone out of habit before remembering I had no service out here. But I had a camera. The thought occurred to me that I should document this. Proof. Evidence. Something to show Marcus, to show anyone who'd listen. I took 3 photos through my windshield. The light was so bright in a person, but on my phone screen it looked washed out, distant. I wasn't satisfied with that. I needed better documentation. Looking back now, I realize how stupid my next decision was. But in the moment, my curiosity was stronger than my fear. I opened my truck door and stepped out into that dead, still air. The silence was oppressive. No insects, no distant coyotes, no wind. Nothing but the sound of my own breathing and the faint ticking of my truck's engine as it cooled. I raised my phone again, zooming in as much as I could. Through the camera, I could make out a shape inside the light. Not exactly a disk, not exactly a sphere. Something in between. The edges seemed to blur and shift slightly, like heat waves coming off asphalt in summer. Except this was October, and it was cold as hell. I snapped 4 more photos, then 5 more. I was so focused on getting clear images that I almost didn't notice when the light began to descend. Slowly, smoothly, it lowered toward the wellhead, maybe 20 feet above it now. 15. 10. The pump jack sat there in complete silence. That's when it hit me. The pump had stopped. No more rhythmic thumping, no sound at all. And that's when things got really weird. The light began to pulse, not flashing, not blinking, pulsing, like a heartbeat. Slow and steady, and with each pulse I felt something in my chest, an actual physical sensation, like my own heart was trying to sync up with whatever rhythm that thing was putting out. I lowered my phone. My hands were shaking now. Fear had finally caught up with my curiosity, and every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get back in the truck and get the hell out of there. But I couldn't move. Not because I was paralyzed or frozen by some alien force. I could move. I just didn't. It was like my body refused to obey my brain, like some deeper part of me knew that running would be the wrong thing to do. The pulsing continued. My vision started to blur slightly at the edges. Not badly, just enough to notice. And then I heard it. A hum. Low, deep, felt more than heard. It vibrated through the ground, through my boots, up through my skeleton. The kind of sound you feel in your molars, in your jaw, in the hollow spaces of your body. I don't know how long I stood there. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been 5 minutes. Time felt slippery, unreliable. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the light shot straight up into the sky. Not gradually, not with any kind of acceleration I could track. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only a fading afterimage in my vision and the smell of ozone hanging in the air. The wind came back all at once, nearly knocking me off balance. The normal sounds of the desert returned, and Well 14's pump jack started up again with a mechanical clunk that made me jump. I stood there for another minute trying to process what I'd just seen. Then I remembered my phone. I pulled it up, opened my photos, and felt my stomach drop. Black screens. Every single photo I'd taken was completely black. Not corrupted, not fuzzy, just pure black, like I'd been taking pictures with the lens cap on. I took a test photo of my truck. It came out fine. Perfect clarity, normal exposure. But every photo from those few minutes? Nothing. I got back in my truck with shaking hands and drove up to Well 14. I had to. It was my job. I needed to check why the data had stopped transmitting. Everything looked normal. The pump was running. The equipment was fine. The control panel showed no errors, no interruptions. According to the timestamp, the data stream had never actually stopped at all. I radioed Marcus, told him everything was operational, probably just a glitch on his end. My voice sounded steady, professional, like I hadn't just watched something I couldn't explain hover over one of our wells. I finished my shift, checked the rest of my sites, drove back to the office at 6 a.m. and filed my report. Equipment normal, no incidents. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. 2 weeks later, I was partnered with a new guy named Elliot for training. Kid was 21, fresh out of community college with some kind of petroleum engineering certificate. Eager, asked a lot of questions, took everything seriously. We were doing the evening shift together, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was showing him the route, explaining the equipment, teaching him how to spot problems before they became expensive problems. Around 10 p.m., we were heading toward the western section when Elliot pointed ahead. "What's that light?" My blood went cold before I even looked, but I looked anyway. There it was. Same white light, same impossible stillness, this time over Well 9, about 3 miles northwest of where I'd seen it before. "Probably another crew working late," I lied. "Let's check it out." Elliot bought it. He didn't know any better. I grabbed the wheel a little tighter and drove towards the light, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to turn around, to make up some excuse, to keep this kid away from whatever that thing was. But another part of me needed to know, needed to understand. We got within 200 yards, and I stopped the truck. "Why are we stopping?" Elliot asked. "Protocol," I said. "We don't know who's out there. Could be unauthorized personnel." That was bullshit, but it sounded official enough that he nodded. I could see Elliot straining to get a better look. The light was dimmer than last time, or maybe it was further away. Hard to tell distances in the dark. "You got your phone?" I asked. He pulled it out. "Yeah, why?" "Film it. Company wants documentation of any unusual activity in the field." More bullshit, but again, he bought it. He held up his phone and started recording, narrating like he was David Attenborough or something. "This is Elliot Thompson, October 29th, 10:17 p.m., approximately 3 miles northwest of the main office. There appears to be an unidentified light source near Well 9. "Keep it simple," I interrupted. "Just film." He went quiet and kept recording. I watched the light. It wasn't pulsing this time, just hovering, steady and bright. The wind was still blowing. That was different. Everything felt more normal, except for the impossible thing floating in the sky. After about 2 minutes, the light began to move. Not up like before, sideways. It drifted north, parallel to the horizon, moving at maybe 30 miles per hour. Smooth and silent. Elliot was still filming. I could hear his breathing getting faster. The light stopped about half a mile north of us, hung there for 10 seconds, 20. Then it shot straight up and vanished, exactly like it had done before. "Did you get that?" I asked. Elliot nodded, eyes wide. Yeah, I got it. What the hell was that?" "Don't know," I said. "But we should check Well 9, make sure everything's operating normally." We drove up to the site. Just like Well 14, everything was fine. Pump running, no errors, no indication that anything unusual had happened. Elliot was quiet on the drive back. I could tell he was processing, trying to make sense of it. Finally, he spoke up. "You ever seen anything like that before?" I hesitated, then lied. "No, first time." He nodded slowly. "Should we report it?" "Yeah," I said. "When we get back. Show Marcus the footage." But when we got back to the office at the end of our shift, and Elliot pulled up his video, we both saw the same thing I'd seen on my photos. Nothing. The video showed our truck's dashboard for 2 minutes and 43 seconds. Through the windshield you could see the desert, illuminated by our headlights. No houlotte in the distance. No mysterious light. Nothing but empty scrubland. "I don't understand," Elliot said, watching the playback for the 3rd time. "I was recording. I was pointing right at it." "Equipment malfunction," I suggested. "Happens sometimes in the field. Electromagnetic interference from the wells, maybe." I had no idea if that was even possible, but it sounded plausible. Marcus came by to check on us. "How'd the training go?" "Good," I said, before Elliot could speak. "Covered the western section. Everything's operational. Elliot looked at me, then at Marcus, then back at me. I could see him struggling with whether to mention what we'd seen. I gave him a slight shake of my head. "Yeah," Elliot finally said. "All good." After Marcus left, Elliot turned to me. "Why didn't you tell him?" "Tell him what? That we saw a light and your camera malfunctioned? What's he going to do with that information?" Elliot didn't have an answer. He went home. I went home, and I tried to convince myself that would be the last time. It wasn't. Over the next 3 months, I saw that light 6 more times. Sometimes alone, sometimes with Elliot. Twice it was over wells. Once it was just hovering over an empty stretch of desert. Once it was following a line of power poles, always the same white light. Always the same impossible silence around it. And every single time we tried to photograph or film it, we got nothing. Black screens. Empty footage. Like the thing knew we were trying to document it and actively prevented it. Elliot started keeping a notebook. Dates, times, locations, duration. He became obsessed with patterns, with trying to predict where it would show up next. I told him to let it go, but I understood. I was just as obsessed, just better at hiding it. One night in late November, Elliot showed me his notebook during our dinner break. We were parked at the main office, eating gas station sandwiches and terrible coffee, when he pulled out this battered composition notebook covered in scribbled notes. "Look at this," he said, flipping to a page covered in a hand-drawn map of the basin. He'd marked each well site and drawn lines connecting them. Every sighting we've had, it's been within this specific area. A rectangle, basically. Wells 4 through 37. So that's 42% of the total well sites in the basin. Why just this section? Why not the eastern fields? Why not the wells closer to Roosevelt? I shrugged. Maybe there's nothing special about it. Maybe we just happened to be in this section when the lights appeared. That's what I thought at first. He flipped to another page, this one covered in timestamps. But then I started asking around, talking to other guards who work different sections. And guess what? They're not seeing them. Or if they are, it's way less frequent. Maybe once or twice a year versus our once a week. "You've been asking other guards about this?" "Carefully," he said quickly. "I don't come right out and say, 'Hey, have you seen any UFOs?' I just ask if they've noticed anything weird. Strange lights, equipment glitches, that kind of thing. And most of them look at me like I'm crazy, but a few, maybe 3 or 4, they get this look, like they know something but don't want to talk about it. One guy, Patrick, he works the northern section. He pulled me aside after and told me he saw something 5 years ago. Lights, plural, moving in formation. Said he reported it to his supervisor and got laughed at. Never mentioned it again." I looked at the notebook, at Elliot's careful documentation of something that shouldn't exist. "What are you trying to prove?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just need to understand what's happening. Why us? Why this section? What are they doing?" "They're probably not doing anything," I said. "It's probably some natural phenomenon, ball lightning, or atmospheric conditions, or ball lightning doesn't make pumps shut down, it doesn't erase photographs, and it doesn't cause missing time." He had a point. "Besides," Elliot continued, "I've been researching. There's a whole community online of people who've seen similar things. Not just in Utah either. All over the Southwest. Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, always in remote areas. Always near some kind of industrial site or military installation." "You've been posting about this online?" "God, no. I'm not that stupid. I'm just reading, lurking, and the patterns are there, Jasper. These things, whatever they are, they're not random. They're systematic. They're choosing specific locations for specific reasons. I wanted to tell him to let it go, to stop obsessing, to delete the notebook and pretend we'd never seen anything. But I couldn't, because he was doing exactly what I wanted to do but was too scared to admit. "What's the pattern?" I asked quietly. He smiled, relieved that I was taking him seriously. "Geology. Every single hotspot for these sightings sits over specific geological formations. Oil deposits, sure, but also uranium deposits, rare earth minerals, underground water systems. It's like they're surveying the planet's resources. Or they're attracted to electromagnetic fields from drilling equipment. Maybe. Or maybe they're here for the same reason we're drilling, resources." That thought sat between us for a long moment. The implications were enormous and terrifying. "How would they even know what's underground?" I asked. "How do we know? Ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, core sampling. Who's to say they don't have technology that can do the same thing from the air, or from space?" I pushed my sandwich away. Suddenly, wasn't hungry. "Look," Elliot said, "I'm not saying I know what these things are. I'm not saying it's aliens or foreign governments or experimental aircraft. I'm just saying there's a pattern, and the pattern suggests intelligence, purpose, and the more I look into it, the more I think we're not the first people to notice." "What do you mean?" He flipped to the back of the notebook, where he'd taped in a printout from some news website. The headline read, "Strange Lights Over Utah's Uinta Basin. Local Ranchers Report Unusual Aerial Activity." "This article is from 1987, Elliot said. 32 years ago. Different wells, same area, same descriptions. Pale white lights, no sound, equipment malfunctions. And look at this one." Another printout, this one from 1952. A letter to the editor in some small-town newspaper, describing lights that dance above the oil fields like ghosts. "It's been happening for at least 70 years, Elliot said. "Probably longer. We just don't hear about it because the oil companies don't want the publicity. The workers don't want to sound crazy, and everyone who sees it convinces themselves it was nothing." Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it is nothing. Then why did your photos come out black? I didn't have an answer for that. Other security guards started talking about weird things in the basin. Lights in the sky. Equipment failures that fixed themselves. Moments where time seemed to skip forward or backward. Most of them laughed it off, blamed fatigue or desert hallucinations. But a few of them, the ones who'd been working out there for years, they got quiet when the subject came up. Like they knew something but weren't willing to say it out loud. I started paying more attention to those quiet ones. There was Rodriguez, who'd been working basin security for 15 years. Whenever someone told a UFO joke, he'd give this tight smile and change the subject. There was Sarah, younger than me, maybe 22, who worked the southern section. She'd mentioned once, casually, that her truck had died for no reason while she was parked at well 46, and then started itself after 3 minutes. When I pressed for details, she clammed up, and there was Marcus himself. Our supervisor, the guy who'd told me about Douglas. I started watching him more carefully during shift briefings, paying attention to how he reacted when people mentioned equipment glitches or unusual occurrences. He never dismissed them outright, but he never asked follow-up questions either. Just nodded, made a note on his clipboard, and moved on. One night in early December, I arrived for my shift to find Marcus in the parking lot, standing beside his truck and staring up at the sky, not looking at anything in particular, just staring. "Everything okay?" I asked. He startled, like he hadn't heard me approach. "Yeah, fine, just tired." "You see something up there?" His eyes met mine. For a moment, I thought he might tell me the truth, whatever that was, but then he looked away. "Get some sleep before your shift, Jasper. Going to be a cold one tonight." I watched him drive away and wondered how many lights he'd seen over his 10 years working this job. How many times he'd stood in this parking lot staring at the sky, trying to convince himself it was nothing. December brought snow to the basin. The wells kept pumping, we kept making our rounds, and the lights kept appearing. Less frequently now, maybe once every 2 weeks instead of twice a week. On December 18th, I was doing a solo overnight shift. Elliot had called in sick. It was just me, my truck, 42 wells, and the vast empty darkness of the Uinta Basin. Around 2 a.m., I was approaching well 31 when every pump in my section stopped at the exact same time. You might not think that's strange if you don't know how these operations work, but oil wells don't shut down simultaneously unless someone throws a master switch. Each pump operates independently. They can be controlled remotely, but they don't just all stop at once unless there's a massive power failure or someone deliberately shuts them down. I grabbed my radio. "Base, this is Jasper. I've got multiple equipment failures in Section 4. All pumps appear to be offline. Requesting status check." Static. Then Marcus's voice, thick with sleep. "Say again?" "Section 4. Wells 27 through 34. Everything's down." A pause. "That's impossible. I'm showing all systems operational on my end." "I'm telling you, they're not running." "I can hear them. They're silent." "Hold position. Let me check the remote diagnostics." I sat there in my truck, engine idling, watching the silent pumps. The headlights illuminated well 31 about 50 yards ahead. The pump jack stood motionless, its horsehead silhouette stark against the sky. And then the light appeared. Not over one well, over all of them. 8 separate lights, one above each well in my section, synchronized perfectly. They descended together, moved in formation, creating a perfect line across the desert floor. The white light bathed everything in that same sourceless glow I'd come to recognize. My radio crackled. "Jasper, diagnostics show everything's running normally." "Are you sure?" "Marcus," I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Something's wrong. I need you to see what I'm seeing." "What are you seeing?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't find words for what I was looking at. The 8 lights had begun to pulse in sequence, left to right, creating a wave pattern. Then right to left, then all at once. The air inside my truck felt thick, heavy. My ears popped like I was descending in an airplane. "Jasper, talk to me. What's happening?" I dropped the radio. My hands wouldn't work properly. That same humming had started, deeper than before, resonating through every surface. The truck's dashboard lights flickered. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. The lights continued their pattern, pulsing, shifting, moving in ways that seemed choreographed, intentional. Like they were communicating with each other or performing some kind of procedure I couldn't begin to understand. I tried to restart the truck. The key turned, but nothing happened. No click, no turnover. Completely dead. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out, not to photograph this time, but to check the time. 2:47 a.m. I looked back up at the lights. They had risen now, maybe 100 feet above the wells, still maintaining their perfect line formation. And then, one by one from left to right, they shot straight up into the sky and vanished. The 8th light lingered for a moment, directly above well 31. Then it too disappeared. The pump jacks all started at the same instant, breaking the silence with their mechanical rhythm. My truck started without me touching the key. The dashboard lights came back on. Everything returned to normal. I grabbed my radio with shaking hands. "Marcus? Jesus Christ, Jasper, where did you go? I've been trying to reach you for the last 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Yeah. You went radio silent. I was about to send someone out there." I looked at my phone again. 3:14 a.m. 27 minutes had passed. I'd watched those lights for what felt like 2, maybe 3 minutes, but 27 minutes were gone. "Equipment failure," I said finally. "Everything's back online now." "You sure you're okay? You sound off." "I'm fine. Just the cold. I'm gonna finish my rounds." I didn't finish my rounds. I drove back to the office, parked my truck, and sat in the break room until my shift ended at 6. Marcus found me there, staring at a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. "You look like hell," he said. "Didn't sleep well before my shift." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. "Listen, if you need some time off, I'm fine. You've been acting strange lately, you and that kid Elliot both, like something's bothering you." I met his eyes. "You ever see anything weird out there? In the basin?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down across from me. "Everyone sees weird things out there," he said slowly. "Desert's a strange place at night. Plays tricks on your mind. Fatigue, isolation, darkness. Easy to see things that aren't there. What if they are there?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood up, walked to the coffee pot, and refilled his mug. When he came back, his expression had changed. 10 years ago, he said quietly. "Before you worked here, we had a guy named Douglas. Good worker, reliable. One night he called in claiming he'd seen spacecraft over the wells, plural, multiple objects. Said they were performing some kind of extraction or survey. Nobody believed him. He got more insistent. Started demanding we report it to authorities, to the media. Company let him go. Liability issue. What happened to him? Last I heard, he was living in Grand Junction, working construction. Normal life. Doesn't talk about what he saw anymore." Marcus paused. "My point is, even if you see something out there, even if it's real, talking about it doesn't help. You understand?" I understood. Perfectly. I put in my 2-week notice the next day. Told them I'd gotten a job offer in Salt Lake City, better pay, closer to family. All lies, but they accepted it without question. Elliot quit 3 days after I did. I didn't find out until later, but apparently he'd seen the lights one more time, alone on a night shift. He'd tried to approach one on foot, gotten within 50 yards before he'd passed out. Woke up 3 hours later in his truck, parked in a completely different section of the basin with no memory of driving there. That was enough for him. But I didn't learn the full story until a month later, when Elliot called me. I'd given him my number before I left, told him to reach out if he ever needed to talk. I didn't really expect him to use it. "Jasper?" His voice sounded rough, like he'd been crying or hadn't slept in days. "Can we meet? I need to tell someone what happened." We met at a diner in Roosevelt, halfway between where we'd both ended up. Elliot looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, and he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. "You look like shit," I said, trying to keep it light. "Yeah," he laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I feel like shit." I ordered coffee. He ordered whiskey, even though it was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The waitress didn't bat an eye. "You want to tell me what happened?" I asked. He took a long drink, then set the glass down carefully. "It was my last shift. I hadn't decided to quit yet, but I think maybe part of me knew. You know how you get a feeling sometimes?" Like your subconscious is making decisions before your conscious mind catches up? I nodded. I was doing the eastern section that night. Wells 48 through 62. Everything was normal until about 3 a.m. when I got a call from base saying, well, 54 had a pressure anomaly. Not a big deal, just needed eyes on it. I drove out there and the whole area felt wrong. You know that feeling we talked about? That pressure drop, like the air itself is different. It was there, but worse than I'd ever felt it. The wind had stopped. My truck felt heavier somehow, like gravity had increased or the suspension had failed. I parked about 50 yards from the well and just sat there for a minute debating whether to get out. Then I saw it. Not above the well this time. On the ground, right next to the pump jack. On the ground. Yeah, like it had landed. Or maybe it had been there the whole time and I just couldn't see it until I was close enough. It was the same pale white light, but more concentrated. Brighter. And I could see a shape this time, an actual physical structure. What did it look like? He shook his head. That's the thing. I can't really describe it. Not because I don't remember, but because it was like my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. The shape kept changing. Or maybe it was always the same shape, but my eyes couldn't hold on to it. Kind of like trying to stare at one of those magic eye pictures where you have to unfocus to see the image, except this was the opposite. The more I tried to focus on it, the less sense it made. He finished his whiskey and signaled for another. I should have driven away right then. Should have called it in or just left or anything other than what I actually did. But I didn't. I got out of the truck. Jesus, Elliot. I know. But I had to see it up close. Had to understand what it was. All those weeks of research, all those patterns I'd documented. And here was my chance to finally get answers. What happened? I walked toward it, slowly. The light didn't react. The structure, whatever it was, just sat there. Silent, still. I got within about 70 yards and could see details now. Not specific details, but I could tell there were seams or panels or something. Geometric patterns that didn't match any geometry I'd ever seen. At 50 yards, I started feeling sick, dizzy, like vertigo combined with motion sickness, except I wasn't moving. My phone was in my pocket, and I thought about taking it out, about trying to photograph this thing one more time, but my hands wouldn't cooperate. At 30 yards, the humming started. That same deep vibration we'd felt before, but loud enough that my vision was shaking. I could feel it in my teeth, in my bones, in the soft parts of my body. It was everywhere. And then, at maybe 25 yards, it opened. I leaned forward. Opened? Part of it did anyway. A section of the structure just suddenly wasn't there anymore. Like a door had appeared where there'd been solid surface before, and there was light coming from inside. Not the pale white of the exterior, but something else. Blue-white, like an arc welder. So bright I had to look away. That's when I saw them. My blood went cold. Saw who? I don't know. Figures, shapes, moving inside that light. I couldn't make out details because the light was too bright, but I could see outlines. They were tall, taller than human, and they were moving with purpose like they were working on something or collecting something or I don't know. Performing some kind of task. He was shaking worse now. The waitress brought his second whiskey and I could see her notice his condition, the concern in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. One of them noticed me, Elliot continued. I don't know how I know that, but I did. It stopped what it was doing and turned toward the opening, toward me, and I felt it looking at me. Not with eyes. I don't think it had eyes, at least not like ours, but I felt its attention focus on me like a physical weight. That's when I ran, or tried to. My legs wouldn't work properly. I stumbled, fell, got back up, and made it maybe 10 feet before everything went black. Missing time, I said. 3 hours and 15 minutes, according to my truck's dashboard clock when I came to. But here's the weird part. I wasn't where I'd been when I passed out. I was in my truck, driver's seat, parked at well 31, 12 miles from where I'd been, and the truck was running, even though I always turn it off when I park. Did you check well 54? See if there were any traces? I drove back there before heading to base. Everything looked normal. The pump was running. No sign anything had ever been there. Not even tire tracks from my truck, even though I'd definitely driven right up to it earlier. What did you tell Marcus? Nothing. I radioed in that, well, 54 was operational, completed my shift like everything was normal, then went home and started packing. I called in sick for my next 3 shifts, got a buddy to pick up my last paycheck, and moved back in with my parents in Ogden. We sat in silence for a while. The diner was mostly empty, just a couple of truckers at the counter and an old couple in the corner booth. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware of what happened in the dark corners of the world. "You believe me?" Elliot finally asked. "Yeah," I said, "I believe you. Do you think they did something to me? When I was unconscious? The missing time? I don't know. Because I've been having dreams. Weird dreams. And sometimes I wake up with these marks on my arms, these tiny punctures that I don't remember getting. And my nose has been bleeding a lot, which has never happened before." I didn't know what to say to that. What could I say? "I went to a doctor," he continued. "Told them I was having nosebleeds and asked them to check me out. They did a full exam, took blood samples. Everything came back normal, but they found something odd." "What?" "I have a small mass in my sinus cavity, right behind my left nostril. They said it's probably nothing, probably just a benign polyp, but they want to monitor it. Schedule an MRI in 6 months to make sure it's not growing." Jesus Christ, Elliot. "Yeah." He finished his second whiskey. "I keep thinking about that figure, the one that noticed me. I keep wondering what it was thinking when it saw me there. Was it surprised? Angry? Did it see me as a threat, or just as, I don't know, data?" I reached across the table and gripped his shoulder. "Listen to me. You need to stop thinking about this. You need to move on, live your life, and forget about the basin. Can you forget? I'm trying. But are you succeeding?" I didn't answer because we both knew the truth. We talked for another hour, comparing notes, sharing theories we both knew were probably wrong. Eventually, we paid the bill and walked out to the parking lot. It was getting dark, the winter sun dropping fast behind the mountains. "Take care of yourself, Elliot," I said. "And if those nosebleeds get worse or if anything else weird happens, you call me. Okay? Okay?" He got in his car, then rolled down the window. "Jasper, do you think we'll ever know what they wanted?" "I hope not," I said. "I really hope not." I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing down the highway, and wondered if I'd ever see him again. That was 4 months ago. I've texted him a few times since then, just checking in. He always responds, always says he's fine, but his messages are brief, distant. Like he's already moving on, already forgetting, already convincing himself it was all just desert madness and bad dreams. I envy him for that. I moved to Price, Utah, got a job at a hardware store. Boring, predictable, safe. No night shifts, no empty deserts, no unexplainable lights in the sky. But sometimes when I'm driving home after closing and the road gets dark and empty, I catch myself checking the sky, looking for that familiar white glow, and part of me, a small stupid part, almost wants to see it again. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about experiences like this. The fear fades eventually. the confusion fades. What doesn't fade is the knowledge that there's something else out there. Something we don't understand. Something that doesn't want to be understood. Moving through our world with purposes we can't begin to comprehend. Well, 14 is still out there in the Uinta Basin, pumping oil. So is Well 9, Well 31, and all the others. The lights probably still appear sometimes. Other security guards probably see them and don't talk about it, just like I didn't. And somewhere in my desk drawer, I still have my phone from that job. I never deleted those blank photos, that empty video footage. I keep them as a reminder that some things exist whether we can prove them or not. My girlfriend asked me once why I won't go camping in remote areas. Why I insist on staying in towns with lights and people and noise. I told her I just prefer civilization. But the truth is I've seen what hangs in the darkness when no one's watching. And I don't ever want to see it again. Though sometimes, late at night, I wonder if it's watching me. If those lights track more than just oil wells. If whatever intelligence guides them has cataloged me, filed me away as one of the people who noticed. I tell myself that's paranoia, desert madness that never quite left my system. But then I'll be standing in my backyard at night, looking up at the stars, and I'll feel it. That same pressure drop, that same quality of wrongness in the air, and I'll go back inside, lock the door, and try to convince myself that I'm safe here, that the lights only appear in the basin, that they're not everywhere, that they're not watching. I almost believe it. Almost. 3 months after I quit, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Jasper? The voice was unfamiliar. Male, older, with a slight southwestern drawl. Yeah, who's this? My name's Douglas. Marcus might have mentioned me. I went cold. The guy from 10 years ago. The one who'd seen spacecraft and lost his job over it. How did you get my number? I still know people at the company. They told me you quit. That you and another kid both left around the same time. That got my attention. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. His voice was gentle but firm. You saw them, the lights, maybe more than once, and now you're trying to move on, trying to convince yourself it was nothing. I didn't respond. My heart was pounding. Listen to me, Jasper. I'm not calling to drag you back into this. I'm calling to tell you it's okay. What you saw was real. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And the best thing you can do is exactly what you're doing. Live your life, stay away from the basin, and don't talk about it. Then why are you calling? Because I wish someone had told me that 10 years ago. I wish someone had called me and said, "You're not crazy, but let it go anyway." Would have saved me a lot of trouble. There was a pause. In the background, I could hear the faint sound of traffic, like he was calling from a phone booth or outside a store. One more thing, Douglas said. If they ever start appearing where you are now, if you see those lights in Price or anywhere else you go, you need to move again, immediately. Don't try to understand why. Don't try to document it. Just leave. What are you saying? That they follow people? I'm saying I've seen things in Grand Junction 3 times in the last 2 years. Different than the basin, but similar enough. And each time, I was ready to pack up and leave. Haven't had to yet, but I'm ready. Jesus Christ. Yeah, he let out a long breath. Take care of yourself, Jasper. And if you ever need to talk to someone who understands, you can reach me through the hardware store in Grand Junction on Main Street. Ask for Douglas. They'll know how to contact me. He hung up before I could respond. I stood there in my apartment holding my phone, staring out the window at the normal Price, Utah Street below. Cars passing by, streetlights humming, Everything ordinary and safe. That was 8 months ago. I haven't seen the light since I left the basin. Haven't felt that pressure drop. Haven't experienced that quality of wrongness in the air. Life has been completely, blessedly normal. But I think about Douglas's call sometimes. About the implication that these things might follow certain people. That seeing them once might mark you somehow, put you on a list you never asked to be on. I've started paying more attention to the news from the Uinta Basin. Not obsessively, just casually checking when I remember. The oil companies are expanding operations out there. More wells, more equipment, more security personnel working night shifts in the empty desert. I wonder how many of them have seen the lights. How many of them have black photos on their phones, empty video files, gaps in their memory that they can't explain. I wonder how many of them will quit like I did, and how many will stay, drawn back night after night by the same terrible curiosity that made me step out of my truck that first time. And I wonder, in my darkest moments, if the lights are still there because we keep looking for them, or if we keep looking for them because the lights want to be found. Last week, something happened that made me think about all of this again. I was closing up the hardware store around 9 p.m. It was January, so it got dark early. Snow on the ground, clear sky, temperature dropping fast. I was locking the front door when I noticed something odd. The street was completely empty. Not unusual for a Thursday night in winter, but it was the kind of empty that felt wrong. No cars, no people. Even the gas station across the street looked deserted, though its lights were still on. And then I felt it. That pressure drop, that quality of wrongness. My hands froze on the keys. My breath caught in my throat. Every instinct I'd developed during my time in the basin started screaming at once. I turned around slowly, scanning the sky. Nothing. Clear stars. Normal darkness. But the feeling persisted, grew stronger. And then I heard it. That low hum, barely perceptible, felt more than heard. I looked down the street. About 2 blocks away, above the post office, there was a light. Small, distant, but growing brighter. The same pale white glow I'd seen over well 14, over well 9, over all those pump jacks in the Uinta Basin. It was here, in Price, following me, just like Douglas had warned. But I didn't run immediately. Some part of me was frozen, watching it drift closer. The light was moving slowly, deliberately, following the line of the street like it was searching for something specific, for someone specific, for me. The hum grew louder. I could feel it starting to resonate in my chest cavity, in the hollow spaces of my skull. My phone was in my pocket and I thought, stupidly, about taking it out, about trying one more time to photograph this thing, to get proof that I wasn't crazy. The light stopped directly above the hardware store, maybe 100 feet up. It wasn't pulsing like it had over the wells, it was just there. Steady, bright, waiting. Around me, the snow had stopped falling. The few flakes that had been drifting down were now hanging suspended in the air, frozen mid-descent. The streetlights began to flicker, and then I heard footsteps. Not the thump of the oil well pumps, not the hum from the light. Actual footsteps, crunching in the snow, coming from the direction of the gas station. I turned and saw a figure walking toward me. Just a silhouette at first, backlit by the gas station's fluorescent glow. Human-shaped, human-sized, moving with normal human gait. But something was wrong with it. As it got closer, I could see it was wearing clothes, jeans, a winter jacket, work boots. But the way it moved was slightly off, not mechanical, not inhuman, just incorrect. Like someone who'd learned to walk by watching videos but had never actually done it before. 50 feet away now. 40. The figure's face was shadowed, but I could see it was looking at me, watching me, studying me, 30 feet, and then it spoke. Jasper Mitchell. My name in a voice that sounded almost human, almost normal, but with something underneath it, an echo, or harmonics or multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. I didn't respond. Couldn't respond. My throat had closed up. "You have seen," the figure said. Not a question, a statement. 20 feet now. Close enough that I could see its face clearly, and that's when my legs finally started working again. Because the face was mine, not similar to mine, not like a twin or a doppelganger. It was my face, exact in every detail, down to the scar on my left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. My face, but wrong. Empty. Like a mask made of flesh. That's when I ran. I didn't think, I didn't plan. I just ran to my car, started it with shaking hands, and drove. Not toward my apartment. Away from town. South on Highway 191, pushing 70 miles an hour on roads that probably should have been taken at 40 in these conditions. In my rearview mirror, I could see the light following. Not close, but not far either. Maintaining a steady distance of maybe a quarter mile, matching my speed exactly. The thing with my face stood in the middle of the street, watching me go. It didn't move, didn't chase, just stood there, an impossible copy of me, until I rounded a curve and lost sight of it. I drove for 20 minutes before I felt safe enough to pull over. A gas station in Wellington, bright lights, other people, normal human activity. I sat in my car in the parking lot, engine running, heater blasting, trying to process what I'd just experienced. The light was gone. The sky looked normal. But I kept checking, kept scanning, kept waiting for that pale white glow to appear again. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered it. "Douglas?" "You saw it." Not a question. A statement. "How did you know?" "Because mine showed up tonight too. About an hour ago, over Grand Junction. First time in 11 months. And this time it brought friends." Friends? Figures. Human-shaped. Walking around my neighborhood like they were looking for something, or someone. His voice was tight with barely controlled fear. "They knocked on my door, Jasper. Knocked on my fucking door." "What did you do?" Didn't answer. Locked everything. Turned off all the lights. Hid in my bathroom with a baseball bat like that would do any good. They knocked for 20 minutes, patient, steady. Knock, knock, knock. Always the same rhythm. Always the same spots on the door. Never raised voices. Never tried to force entry. Just knocked. Did they leave? Eventually. But not before I looked out the window and saw one of them looking back at me. And you know what it looked like? I already knew the answer. You. Yeah. My face. My clothes. My fucking haircut. Like someone had made a copy of me and sent it to knock on my door. We were both quiet for a moment. "What do they want?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe they're checking on us, making sure we're still here, still accessible. Maybe they're cataloging us somehow, or maybe they're trying to communicate, and this is the best they can do. Show up looking like us to prove they've been watching." That's horrifying. Yeah. He let out a shaky laugh. It is, but it's also weirdly, I don't know, personal, like they chose us specifically. Out of all the people who've worked in that basin, all the people who've seen the lights, they chose us to follow. Lucky us. Same thing I'm doing. Leaving. I'm packed and headed to Denver tonight. Got a buddy who can put me up for a while. You should do the same. Go somewhere big, somewhere with a lot of people and light and activity. Cities seem to deter them, or at least make it harder for them to operate. This is insane. Yeah. He sounded tired. It is, but it's also real, and we both know it. I've got to go. My buddy's expecting me, but Jasper? Yeah? If you see that thing again, the one with your face, don't engage with it. Don't talk to it. Don't acknowledge it. Don't let it touch you. Just run. Why? Because I made that mistake. Earlier tonight, before they knocked on my door, one of them was standing by my car when I got home from work. Just standing there, waiting. And I was so shocked seeing my own face staring back at me that I froze. It walked up to me, reached out its hand like it wanted to shake, and I almost took it, almost. What stopped you? Its eyes. They were mine, physically. Same color, same shape, but there was nothing behind them. No light, no consciousness, no humanity. Just empty holes that looked like eyes. And I knew, absolutely knew, that if I touched that thing, something bad would happen. What did it do when you didn't shake its hand? Dropped its arm, tilted its head like it was confused, then turned and walked away. But I could feel it watching me all the way into my house, feel it studying me, learning from my reactions. After we hung up, I sat in that gas station parking lot for another hour, watching the sky, waiting to see if the light would follow me to Wellington. It didn't. Eventually, I drove to a motel, checked in under a fake name, paid cash, and spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do next. Every time I started to drift off, I'd jerk awake, imagining I heard knocking. Steady, patient knocking, the sound of something that looked like me standing outside my door, waiting to be let in. How long do we have to keep running? I don't know, Jasper. I honestly don't know. Maybe forever. Maybe until they get bored with us. Maybe until we figure out what they want and give it to them. He paused. Or maybe until we stop noticing, stop looking up, stop remembering. Let the fear fade completely and just accept that we share this world with something we don't understand. Can you do that? Just accept it and move on? No, he admitted. That's why I'm packing right now. That's why I've moved 4 times in 10 years. That's why I'll probably die without ever understanding what the hell those lights are, or what they were doing over those oil wells. We were both quiet for a moment. Then Douglas spoke again. Stay safe, Jasper. Keep moving if you have to. And if you ever figure out what they want, you call me. Because I'd like to know before I die. He hung up. I sat there in that gas station parking lot for another hour, watching the sky, waiting to see if the light would follow me to Wellington. It didn't. Eventually, I drove to a motel, checked in under a fake name, and spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do next. That was 6 days ago. I'm writing this from a coffee shop in Provo, Utah. Bigger city, more people, more lights. I quit my job at the hardware store via text message, grabbed my essential belongings, and left everything else behind. My landlord will probably keep my deposit for breaking the lease early, but that's the least of my concerns. I don't know if this is permanent. I don't know if I'll need to keep moving, keep running from lights that might or might not be tracking me across the state. I don't know if Douglas is right, if cities offer protection, or if we're just fooling ourselves. What I do know is this. There's something out there in the darkness. Something that moves silently across our world, hovering over oil fields and small towns, and who knows what else. Something that doesn't want to be photographed or filmed or proven to exist. And some of us, for reasons I don't understand, can see it when others can't. Or maybe we're just the ones who choose to look when everyone else looks away. I've been thinking about Marcus lately. About how he said everyone sees weird things in the basin, how easy it is to blame fatigue and isolation and desert hallucinations. I wonder if he's seen the lights too. I wonder if every person who's worked security in that God-forsaken place has seen them, and they've all just made an unspoken agreement not to talk about it. Because that's the real horror, isn't it? Not the lights themselves, but the silence around them. The collective decision to pretend they don't exist, to laugh them off, to file them away as unexplainable and therefore unimportant. How many Douglases are out there? How many people moving from town to town, carrying their blank photographs and empty video files and missing time, and the certain knowledge that they saw something they can never prove? How many Jaspers, trying to build normal lives while constantly checking the sky, waiting for that pale white glow to reappear? How many Elliots, carrying strange masses in their sinuses and waking up with unexplained marks and trying desperately to convince themselves it was all just a dream? And how many people with our faces walking the streets of Price and Grand Junction, and God knows where else, knocking on doors with patient persistence, waiting to be acknowledged? I've started having nightmares about that thing, my doppelganger. In the dreams, I open my door, and it's standing there, wearing my face like a mask, holding out its hand, and every time, I reach out to shake it. Every time, our hands are about to touch when I wake up, gasping, my own hand extended into empty air. I looked it up online. Doppelgangers. Apparently, in folklore, seeing your own double is supposed to be an omen of death. The Germans called it a fetch, a spirit that takes your form to warn you that your time is running out. The Irish had similar legends, so did the Norse. But those were just stories. Superstitions from a time before science, before rational explanations. Except I saw mine. Saw it wearing my face, walking with my gait, existing in the same world I exist in. And if Douglas saw his, and Elliot saw God knows what during his missing time, then maybe those old stories weren't just superstition. Maybe they were warnings from people who'd encountered the same thing we have. Centuries before satellites and oil wells and industrial civilization. Maybe this has been happening for a very long time. The coffee shop is closing soon. It's getting dark outside, and I don't like being out after sunset anymore. I've got a studio apartment 6 blocks from here. 7th floor of a building with good lighting and a lot of neighbors. Safe? Normal? Human? But as I pack up my laptop, I notice something odd. The coffee shop has 3 large windows facing the street, and in each window I can see my reflection, except the reflections aren't quite synchronized. The one on the left is packing up. The one in the middle is looking at its phone. The one on the right is staring directly at me. I freeze. It's just a trick of the light. Has to be. Multiple panes of glass at different angles creating different reflections. Nothing supernatural about it. But the reflection on the right keeps staring at me while I move. Doesn't mirror my movements. Just watches with my own eyes, wearing my own face, completely still while I shift and fidget and try to convince myself this isn't happening. I look away, count to 10, look back. All 3 reflections are normal now. All 3 of me are packing up my laptop, getting ready to leave. "You okay, hun?" The barista is standing by my table, wiping down the surfaces. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Yeah," I manage. "I'm fine, just tired." "Well, we're closing in 5 minutes, so if you need anything else..." "No, I'm good, thank you." I finish packing quickly, throw my bag over my shoulder and head for the door. I don't look at the windows, don't check the reflections. Just keep my eyes forward and walk. Outside, the street is busy with evening traffic. People heading home from work, students from the nearby college going to dinner. Normal human activity. The sight of so many people should be comforting, but all I can think about is what Douglas said. They chose us specifically. Why? What makes us different? Is it because we work in remote places where they can observe us without witnesses? Is it because we noticed them when others didn't? Or is there something else, some quality or characteristic that marks us as interesting to whatever intelligence guides those lights? I start walking toward my apartment, keeping to the well-lit streets, staying where there are people. 6 blocks feels like 6 miles. Halfway there, my phone buzzes. Text message from an unknown number. Stop looking for us. I stop walking. Read the message again. It's in English, grammatically correct. Sent from a number I don't recognize. No previous conversation history. I type back, "Who is this?" The 3 dots appear immediately, like someone's typing a response. They pulse for several seconds. Then stop. No message comes through. I try calling the number. It rings once, then I hear my own voice on the other end. "You have reached Jasper Mitchell. I'm not available right now." It's my voicemail greeting. From my old phone. The one I had during my time in the basin, the one I threw away when I left Price. I hang up and start walking faster. Another text comes through. "We see you." Then another. "We have always seen you." I'm running now, not caring who sees me, not caring if I look crazy, just running the last 4 blocks to my building, fumbling with my keys, slamming through the lobby door and hitting the elevator button over and over until it arrives. 7th floor, down the hallway, into my apartment. Lock the door, chain lock, deadbolt. Push a chair under the handle. I'm breathing hard, leaning against the door when my phone buzzes again. "Don't run." And then, worse, "We're trying to help." I throw the phone across the room. It hits the wall and clatters to the floor. Screen cracked, but still working. I can see the texts from across the room, new ones appearing every few seconds. "You are important. You have seen the lights. We need you to understand. We need you to—" The texts stop. My phone screen goes dark, and then from somewhere outside my window, I hear it. That low hum, that vibration that feels more than heard. I don't want to look. Every instinct tells me not to look. But I have to. I have to know. I walk to my window slowly, keeping the lights in my apartment off. The curtains are closed, just a gap of a few inches between the panels. I put my eye to the gap and look out at the city. Provo spreads out below me. Thousands of lights from thousands of homes and businesses and cars. A sea of human civilization. Proof that we're not alone, that we're many and safe and protected by our numbers. And above it all, silent and steady, is the light. Not pale white this time. Blue-white, like Elliot described from inside the opened craft. And it's not over the oil fields or the desert or some remote location. It's right there, hanging above downtown Provo, above the thousands of people who probably aren't even looking up. As I watch, it begins to pulse, slow, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, like it's alive. And in that moment, I understand what Douglas meant about running, about keeping moving, because this thing, whatever it is, wherever it comes from, it's not giving up, it's not going away. It's been here for decades, maybe centuries, watching and waiting, and selecting certain people for reasons we can't comprehend. And now it's here, in a city of tens of thousands, hovering in plain sight, pulsing like a heart, and somehow I absolutely know, that I'm the only one who can see it. The light begins to descend, slowly, smoothly, lowering toward the buildings below, toward my building. I step back from the window. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely grip the curtain to close it fully. But I manage, pulling it shut, blocking out the sight of that impossible light. Then I grab my phone from the floor, my wallet from the table, and I leave. Don't pack. Don't gather belongings. Just leave. Running down the stairs because I don't trust the elevator. Not trusting anything that moves on its own, that operates according to programming or purpose I don't understand. Out through the lobby, past the night doorman who calls after me asking if everything's okay. into the street where people are walking and driving and living their normal lives, completely unaware of what's hanging above them. I get in my car, start the engine, and drive. North this time. Not south. Not to a smaller town or a different part of Utah. North to Salt Lake City, the biggest concentration of humanity in the state. And if that doesn't work, if the lights follow me there too, then maybe further. Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, New York. Cities so large and bright and full of people that surely there's no room for impossible lights and doppelgangers and missing time. But even as I drive, merging onto I-15 North, pushing 80 miles an hour in my desperate flight towards something resembling safety, I can see it in my rearview mirror. The light, following, patient, steady, keeping pace with me like it has all the time in the world, like it knows I can't run forever, like it knows that eventually I'll have to stop, have to sleep, have to let my guard down. And when I do, it'll be waiting. My phone, shattered screen and all, buzzes one more time. I don't want to look, but I can't help it. I glance down at the illuminated screen. One final message from that unknown number. See you soon. I drive through the night, heading north under a sky full of stars that might not all be stars, past other cars whose drivers might not all be human, toward a city that might not offer the protection I'm hoping for. And somewhere behind me, in Price and Grand Junction and the Uinta Basin and every place I've ever been, there are blank photographs and empty video files and questions that will never be answered, and copies of me walking the streets, knocking on doors, waiting with infinite patience for someone to let them in. Douglas was right about one thing. We're not running from this. We're being herded. And I'm starting to suspect that wherever we're being herded to, we're almost there. I've been driving trucks for 17 years, long haul mostly, the kind of routes that take you through the emptiest parts of America, where the radio cuts out for hours at a time, and your headlights are the only proof that civilization still exists somewhere out there in the dark. You see a lot of strange things when you're alone on the road at 3 a.m. Deer standing perfectly still in the middle of the highway, eyes reflecting your high beams. Abandoned cars with no explanation for why they're there. Hitchhikers who appear and disappear between one glance and the next. Most of it you can explain away. Tired eyes, long hours, the mind playing tricks when you've been staring at white lines for 12 hours straight. But some things you can't explain. My name's Rowan Mitchell, and I need to tell you about what happened on Highway 191, just south of Vernal, Utah, on a night in March 2020. I was hauling a load of industrial equipment from Denver to Salt Lake City. Standard route, one I'd driven maybe 50 times before. Left Denver around 5 p.m., planning to push through to Salt Lake by morning. The schedule was tight but manageable if I didn't hit weather or traffic. The first part of the drive was fine. I-70 through the mountains, then north on 191 through Price. I stopped for dinner at a truck stop around 9 p.m., fueled up, grabbed coffee and a sandwich, checked my load straps. Everything by the book. Back on the road by 9:30. The plan was to make it to Duchesne by midnight, then push on to Heber City before finding a place to sleep for a few hours. But I never made it to Duchesne. Around 11 p.m., I was on a particularly empty stretch of 191, maybe 20 miles south of Vernal. This part of the route runs through the Uinta Basin, which is about as remote as it gets in Utah, oil country. You see pump jacks scattered across the landscape, their mechanical heads bobbing up and down like prehistoric birds drinking from the earth. The road was empty. Hadn't seen another vehicle in maybe 40 minutes. No lights from houses or towns. Just darkness and sagebrush and the occasional reflective marker on the shoulder. I had the radio on, some classic rock station out of Vernal, but it was mostly static at this point. I was about to turn it off when the static changed. Got deeper somehow. Less like regular interference and more like a low hum underneath the regular crackling. Then the radio cut out completely. Not unusual in this area. I reached for the dial to try finding another station when I noticed something ahead. A light. At first I thought it was another truck coming toward me, but the light was wrong. Too orange, too bright, and it wasn't moving like a vehicle would move. It was just there, hovering maybe 15 feet above the road, about a quarter mile ahead. I eased off the gas, watching it. The light was perfectly round, maybe 10 feet in diameter, glowing with this deep orange color like a coal fire. No beam, no searchlight effect. Just a sphere of orange light floating above the highway. My first thought was some kind of emergency flare. Maybe an accident ahead, highway patrol putting up warning lights. But there were no other vehicles, no flashing blues and reds, no signs of any kind of incident. I slowed to about 40 miles per hour, then 30, trying to figure out what I was looking at. The orange sphere didn't move, didn't react to my approach, just hung there in the air, perfectly still, bathing that section of highway in orange light. At about 200 yards out, my truck started acting strange. The engine, which had been running smooth and steady, began to sputter. Not badly, just a slight hesitation in the power delivery, like a misfire or fuel delivery issue. I checked my gauges. Everything looked normal. RPM steady, oil pressure good, coolant temperature normal, no warning lights, but the sputtering got worse. At 100 yards, the engine was coughing badly. I could feel the whole truck shuddering with each misfire. I downshifted, trying to maintain speed, but the engine was losing power fast. 50 yards out, and the engine died completely. Just quit, like someone had turned off the ignition key. But here's the thing that still bothers me. The truck didn't stop. When a diesel engine dies while you're moving, you lose power steering and power brakes, but you still have momentum. You coast. Eventually, you roll to a stop, but it takes a while, especially if you're hauling 40,000 pounds of cargo. My truck should have coasted right through that orange light and out the other side. It didn't. The truck stopped immediately, not with a jerk or a sudden brake. It just stopped, like something had grabbed it and held it in place. Momentum gone. 1 second I was rolling at maybe 20 miles per hour. The next I was completely stationary, sitting about 30 yards from that orange sphere. The sudden stop should have thrown me forward against the seatbelt. Should have sent my coffee cup flying, knocked over the papers on my dash. But nothing moved. Everything stayed exactly where it was, like the laws of physics had just decided to take a break. I sat there, engine dead, truck stopped, staring at that orange light and trying to understand what the hell had just happened. The silence was complete. No engine, no radio, no wind. I couldn't even hear the usual creaks and groans a truck makes when it's settling after movement. Just absolute, oppressive silence. And then the light began to move. Slowly, smoothly, it drifted toward my truck. Not fast, maybe walking speed, but deliberate, intentional. My hands were frozen on the steering wheel. My brain was screaming at me to do something. Restart the engine, jump out and run, something, but my body wouldn't respond. The orange sphere moved closer. 20 yards. 15. I could see details now. The light wasn't uniform. There were darker spots within it, like shadows or patterns, moving in slow spirals. The orange glow pulsed slightly, not rhythmically like the lights over the oil wells, but irregularly, almost organically, like breathing. 10 yards. The inside of my cab was bathed in orange light now. Every surface glowed with it. My hands on the wheel looked strange, the skin tone all wrong in that alien illumination. And then I felt it. Heat. Not intense, not burning, but definitely warm. The temperature in the cab was rising, and I could feel it on my face, my hands, the back of my neck. The orange sphere stopped about 5 yards from my front bumper, just hung there, pulsing slowly, radiating that strange heat. I don't know how long we sat like that. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been 5 minutes. Time felt wrong, elastic, unreliable. And then, without any warning, without any change I could perceive, the orange sphere shot straight up into the sky. Fast, faster than anything I'd ever seen move. One moment it was there, the next it was a point of light 1,000 feet up, then gone completely, leaving only darkness and the fading after-image in my vision. The instant it disappeared, my engine started. No cranking, no ignition sequence. It just started running, smooth and steady, like it had never stopped. My headlights, which I hadn't even noticed were off, came back on. The radio crackled back to life, picking up right in the middle of whatever song had been playing. I sat there, engine idling, hands still gripping the wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Then I looked at my clock. 11:47 p.m. That couldn't be right. When I'd first seen the orange light, my clock had read 11:22 p.m. The whole encounter had felt like maybe 5 minutes, 10 at most. But 25 minutes were gone. I grabbed my phone, same time. 11:47 p.m. I had lost 25 minutes. My hands were shaking now. I put the truck in gear, eased back onto the highway and started driving. I didn't speed, didn't panic, just drove at a steady 55 miles per hour, checking my mirrors every few seconds, scanning the sky, waiting for that orange light to reappear. It didn't. I made it to Vernal around 12:30 a.m. and pulled into the first truck stop I saw. I needed to think, needed to figure out what to do. Should I report this? To who? Highway Patrol. They'd think I was drunk or high or crazy. My company? They'd send me for a drug test and probably pull me off the road pending a psych evaluation. I sat in the parking lot, engine off, trying to decide. That's when I noticed the other truck pulling in. A Peterbilt, similar to mine but older. It parked a few spaces over. I watched the driver get out. An older woman, maybe 55, moving with the stiff gait of someone who'd been sitting for too long. She glanced my way, did a double take, then started walking toward my truck. I rolled down my window. "You okay?" she asked. Her voice was rough, like she'd been smoking for decades. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." She studied me for a moment. "You just come up 191? I nodded. "You see anything weird out there, on the road?" My heart started pounding. "Like what?" "I don't know. Light, maybe. Something that doesn't belong." I couldn't speak, just stared at her. She nodded slowly like I'd confirmed something. "Yeah, me too. About 40 minutes ago. Orange thing, right? Floating above the road? You saw it?" "Saw it, got stopped by it, lost God knows how much time sitting there watching it. Came straight here because I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind." She pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one with shaking hands. "Name's Della. Della Thompson. Rowan Mitchell. Well, Rowan, I think we need to talk." We went inside the truck stop, found a booth in the back of the attached diner, and ordered coffee neither of us really wanted. The place was mostly empty. A couple of other truckers at the counter, a lone waitress who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Della pulled out her phone and set it on the table. "Okay, so here's what happened to me. I was southbound about 15 miles north of where you probably were. Around 11:15, I saw this orange light ahead of me. Thought it was road work at first, but as I got closer, I realized it wasn't on the ground. It was floating. Same, I said. 15 feet up, maybe? Yeah, about that. And when I got close, my engine died, just quit. But the truck didn't coast. It stopped immediately. Jesus, same thing happened to me. And the time? Della asked. You lose any time? I nodded. 25 minutes. I saw the light at 11:22. When it left and my engine restarted, my clock said 11:47. Della's face went pale. I lost 32 minutes, and I have no memory of most of it. I remember the light approaching my truck, remember feeling hot, and then, boom! It's gone and half an hour is missing. We sat in silence for a moment, both processing the implications. We should report this, I said finally. Someone needs to know. Report what? That we saw a UFO? That we have missing time? Della shook her head. I've been driving trucks for 22 years, Rowan. I've got a spotless record, never been late with a delivery, never failed a drug test. If I go to the company or the cops with this story, I'm done. They'll ground me, probably permanently. So we just pretend it didn't happen? I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need to be smart about how we handle this. She pulled up something on her phone, turned it to show me. It was a forum, some kind of trucker message board. The thread title read, Strange Lights on Highway 191. Anyone else seeing this? I scrolled through the posts. There were dozens of them, going back years. Truckers reporting orange lights, blue-white lights, red lights, equipment failures, missing time, encounters that matched ours almost exactly. This has been happening for years, Della said. Decades, probably. And nobody talks about it because nobody wants to sound crazy. But if you know where to look, if you know the right forums and chat rooms, you find the stories. Have any of these people reported it, gone to authorities? Some have. Most get ignored. A few get investigated, but the official explanation is always ball lightning, or atmospheric phenomena, or the witness was fatigued and experiencing hallucinations. But we both saw it. 2 independent witnesses, same night, same location. That's not a hallucination. No, Della agreed. It's not. The waitress came by to refill our coffee. We waited until she was gone before continuing. So what do we do? I asked. Della was quiet for a long moment, staring at her coffee. We document everything. Write down exactly what happened, with timestamps and locations. We compare notes, see if our experiences match or differ in any significant ways. And we see if anyone else saw it tonight. How do we find other witnesses? CB radio, trucker forums, social media. There are ways to reach out without making it too obvious what we're asking about. She paused. But Rowan, you need to decide if you really want to go down this road. Once you start looking into this stuff, once you start connecting with other people who've had similar experiences, it's hard to stop. It becomes an obsession. I need to understand what happened to me. Yeah, she said softly. I get that. I felt the same way the first time. First time? You've seen these lights before? Della nodded slowly. 3 times. First was 8 years ago, on this same highway. I was heading north toward Vernal when I saw a blue-white light hovering over an oil pump. Watched it for maybe 30 seconds before it shot up into the sky and vanished. No missing time that incident, no equipment failure. Just a light that shouldn't have been there. Second time was 4 years ago. Different location, down near Moab. Red light that time, bigger than the one tonight. It followed me for about 10 miles, staying maybe 100 yards behind my truck. Scared the hell out of me. Then it just veered off and disappeared behind some mountains. Tonight was the first time one actually stopped my truck. First time I lost time. She met my eyes, and that scares me more than anything else that's happened. Why? Because the pattern is escalating. First encounter, I just observed. Second encounter, it interacted with me by following. Third encounter, it stopped me and took time I can't account for. What's the fourth encounter going to be? I didn't have an answer for that. We talked for another hour, comparing every detail we could remember. The color of the light, both described it as deep orange, like burning coal. The height, both estimated 15 to 20 feet above the road. The heat, both felt it, though neither of us could say exactly how hot it got. The silence, both described it as oppressive, absolute. The missing time, hers 32 minutes, mine 25. When we finally left the diner, dawn was starting to break over the eastern horizon. We exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch, and agreed to document everything we could remember. "One more thing," Della said as we walked to our trucks. "Be careful who you tell about this. Most people will think you're crazy. But there are others out there, people who've had similar experiences, and they'll understand. Find them, talk to them. You're not alone in this." She drove off, heading south toward Price. I sat in my truck for another few minutes, watching the sky lighten, thinking about orange lights and missing time, and the unsettling realization that the world was stranger and more frightening than I'd ever imagined. Then I started my engine and headed north to finish my delivery. The next few days were strange. I completed the Salt Lake City delivery without incident, picked up a load heading back to Denver, and tried to go about my normal routine. But I couldn't stop thinking about that night, about the orange sphere, the stopped truck, the missing 25 minutes. I found myself checking the sky constantly, especially after sunset, looking for lights that shouldn't be there, watching for anything unusual. And I started doing research. I found the forum Della had shown me and created an account. Started reading through years of archived posts from truckers, oilfield workers, ranchers, and highway patrol officers who'd seen strange things in the Uinta Basin. The patterns were undeniable. Reports went back to the 1950s, though they became more frequent in the 1970s after oil drilling really ramped up in the area. The descriptions varied. Some lights were white, some blue, some red, some orange like mine, but the behaviors were consistent. Lights hovering over roads or wells, equipment failures, missing time, sudden silence, temperature changes, and vehicles stopping without explanation. That last one caught my attention. I found maybe a dozen reports over the years of vehicles, cars, trucks, even motorcycles, coming to complete stops when they encountered these lights. No coasting, no gradual deceleration, just instant cessation of movement, like physics had temporarily stopped working. One account from 2003 described almost exactly what had happened to me. A trucker hauling lumber had encountered an orange sphere on Highway 40 near Roosevelt. Engine died, truck stopped immediately. 38 minutes of missing time. When he came to, his truck was running again and he was 10 miles further down the road than where he'd stopped. He'd been moved while unconscious. I sat back from my laptop, feeling cold despite the warm evening. Had I been moved? I didn't think so. My truck had been in the same position on the highway when my engine restarted. At least, I thought it had been. But how could I be sure? I pulled out the notebook I'd started keeping, the one where I was documenting everything I could remember about that night. I'd drawn a rough map of the highway, marking where I first saw the light, where my truck stopped, the positions of nearby landmarks, a road sign, a cattle guard, a particular distinctive rock formation on the left side of the road. But the more I tried to remember specific details, the fuzzier they became. Had there been a cattle guard? Or was I confusing it with a different stretch of highway? The rock formation, had it been on the left or the right? Missing time is one thing. Missing memory is another. I spent the next week on regular routes: Denver to Phoenix, Phoenix to Albuquerque, Albuquerque back to Denver. Nothing unusual happened. No lights, no equipment failures, no lost time. But I stayed in touch with Della. We texted every few days, sharing anything new we found in our research. She'd connected with a few other truckers who'd had similar experiences, and we'd started a private group chat where we could compare notes without fear of being ridiculed. There were 6 of us total. Me, Della, a guy named Marcus who drove for a different company, a woman named Sarah who did mostly regional routes in Utah and Colorado, and 2 other drivers who went by handles instead of real names, Ghost and Roadrunner. We shared our stories. The similarities were striking. All 6 of us had encountered lights on Highway 191 or nearby roads in the Uinta Basin. All 6 had experienced some kind of equipment failure. 5 of us had missing time. Sarah's encounter was more recent, and she hadn't lost any time, but her truck had stopped inexplicably for about 90 seconds before restarting on its own. "Has anyone tried going back?" Marcus asked in the group chat one night. "Like deliberately driving the same route at the same time to see if it happens again?" "Why the hell would you want to do that?" Della responded. "To understand it, to maybe get answers, or to get abducted, lose more time, and wake up with your truck in a different state," Ghost said. "I've thought about it," I admitted. "Going back to that same stretch of highway, same time of night, seeing if anything happens." "Don't," Della typed. "Whatever these things are, they're not friendly. They're not here to make contact or communicate. They're doing something else, something we don't understand, and we just happen to be in their way sometimes." "How do you know they're not friendly?" Sarah asked. "Because friendly things don't steal your time. They don't stop your vehicle with invisible force. They don't follow you for miles in the dark. Whatever these things are, whatever they want, it's not good for us." The conversation shifted after that, but Marcus's question stuck with me. What would happen if I went back? 2 weeks after my encounter, I had a route that took me through the Uinta Basin again. Denver to Salt Lake City, same as before. I could have taken an alternate route, I-80 through Wyoming, which is actually faster and avoids the remote sections of 191. But I didn't. I took the same road, left Denver at the same time, and told myself it was just because I wanted to prove I wasn't afraid, that I could drive that highway without anything unusual happening. I knew I was lying to myself. The truth was, I wanted to see it again. Wanted to understand what had happened that night. Wanted answers to questions I couldn't even fully articulate. I reached the critical stretch of highway around 11 p.m., same time as before. Clear night, no clouds, temperature in the low 40s. Road conditions good. No other traffic. I drove slowly, watching the sky, checking every shadow and distant light. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweaty on the wheel despite the cool air. Nothing happened. I passed the spot where my truck had stopped. The landmarks I'd marked in my notebook were right where I remembered them. The cattle guard, the rock formation, the road sign, everything normal. I felt simultaneously relieved and disappointed. I kept driving, made it to Vernal without incident, stopped at the same truck stop as before. Della wasn't there this time. I checked my phone. No new messages in the group chat. I got coffee, walked around the parking lot to stretch my legs, and tried to shake the feeling that I'd just dodged something or missed something or failed some kind of test I hadn't known I was taking. Then I got back in my truck and continued north. Around 1 a.m., somewhere between Vernal and Roosevelt, my CB radio crackled to life. Anyone reading this, static. If you can hear me, more static than a man's voice, clearer this time. This is southbound driver at mile marker 147. I've got a situation here. Engine failure. Lights in the sky. If anyone can hear this, I need... The transmission cut off abruptly. I grabbed my mic. This is northbound driver at mile marker 162. I copy your transmission. What's your 20? No response. Southbound driver. This is northbound driver. Do you copy? Static. I was about 15 miles north of mile marker 147. I could be there in maybe 12 minutes if I pushed it. I shouldn't have done what I did next. Should have called highway patrol, reported a possible driver in distress, let the professionals handle it. But I didn't. I turned around at the next crossroad and headed south, pushing my truck to 70 miles per hour, watching the mile markers count down. 160, 155, 150. At mile marker 149, I saw it. A truck, pulled over on the shoulder. Hazard lights flashing. And above it, maybe 50 feet up, a blue-white light. Not orange like mine had been. Blue-white, like Della had described from her first encounter. It was smaller than the orange sphere, maybe 6 feet across, and it was moving, slowly circling above the stopped truck like a vulture circling carrion. I slowed down, pulled onto the shoulder about 100 yards behind the other truck, grabbed my flashlight and my CB mic. Southbound driver, this is northbound driver. I can see you. I'm about 100 yards behind you. Do you copy? No response from the CB. But I saw the driver's door open. A figure got out. Male, I thought, though it was hard to tell in the darkness and the strange blue-white light. The figure looked up at the circling light, then turned and saw my truck. Started walking toward me, moving fast. I got out of my truck. You okay? What happened? As he got closer, I could see he was young, maybe mid-20s, Hispanic, medium build, wearing jeans and a company jacket. His eyes were wide, face pale, and he was shaking. Did you see it? He asked, voice cracking. Please tell me you see it. The light? Yeah, I see it. Oh, thank God. I thought I was losing my mind. He looked back at his truck, at the circling light above it. My engine just died. I was driving along fine, and then the whole electrical system cut out. Everything. Engine, lights, radio. And when I got out to check, I saw that thing up there. How long has it been there? Maybe 5 minutes. I called for help on the CB, but I don't think anyone heard me. Then you showed up. We both watched the blue-white light continue its slow circle. It wasn't descending like my orange sphere had, just circling, steady and methodical. Have you tried restarting your truck? I asked. Yeah, nothing. It's completely dead. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk back to my truck, get in, and get the hell out of here. You can file a report about your truck in the next town. Say it broke down, arrange for a tow. But we need to leave now. What about my load? Forget the load. Whatever that thing is, it's not natural, and I'm not sticking around to see what it does next. He looked like he wanted to argue, but another glance at the circling light changed his mind. We started walking back to my truck. We'd made it maybe 20 yards when the light stopped circling. It just hung there, perfectly still, directly above the abandoned truck. And then it began to descend. Move, I said. Now. We ran. Behind us, I could hear a sound like wind, except there was no wind. The air was completely still. The sound was coming from the light itself, a high-pitched whistle that grew louder as it descended. We reached my truck. I yanked the door open, practically threw the kid inside, ran around to the driver's side. Started the engine. It turned over immediately, thank God. I put it in gear and hit the gas, pulling back onto the highway. In my mirrors, I could see the blue-white light had descended to maybe 10 feet above the abandoned truck. It was brighter now, so bright it hurt to look at. "Don't look at it," I told the kid. "Just keep your eyes forward." "What is it?" he whispered. "What the fuck is it?" "I don't know, but I've seen something like it before." We drove for maybe 2 miles in silence. I kept checking my mirrors, watching for the light to follow us. It didn't. It stayed right where it was, hovering over that abandoned truck. Then, just as we came around a curve and lost sight of it, I saw it shoot straight up into the sky, fast as a rocket, leaving a brief trail of blue-white light that faded quickly. "It's gone," the kid said. "Oh, Jesus, it's gone." "What's your name?" I asked. "Victor. Victor Ramirez." "Okay, Victor, I'm Rowan, and we need to talk." I pulled into the next truck stop about 8 miles up the road. We went inside, found a booth, ordered coffee. Victor couldn't stop shaking. "I've been driving trucks for 3 years, he said. 3 years, and I've never seen anything like that." "What was it?" "I wish I knew." "Have you seen them before, these lights?" I nodded. 2 weeks ago, different light, different behavior, but same basic idea. Orange sphere instead of blue-white. Stopped my truck, hovered near me for a while, then took off straight up just like yours did." "Did your engine restart?" "Yeah, the second the light disappeared, my engine started on its own." Victor's face went even paler. "You think mine will do the same? Once that thing is gone?" "Maybe. I don't know. These things don't seem to follow consistent rules." He pulled out his phone, started typing. "I need to call my dispatcher, tell them about the truck." "Wait." I grabbed his wrist. "What are you going to tell them?" "That the truck broke down, that I had to abandon it and catch a ride with another driver." "And if they ask why the truck broke down, what are you going to say?" He stared at me. "I don't know. Electrical failure?" "They'll send a recovery team. They'll examine the truck, and when they find nothing wrong with it, when it starts up fine and runs perfectly, what then?" "What am I supposed to do? I can't just leave it there." "You can. You file a report tomorrow morning. Say you're not sure what happened. The truck just died and you needed to get somewhere safe. Let them tow it. Let them examine it. Let them figure it out. But don't mention the light. Don't mention anything unusual." "Why not?" "Because they won't believe you. They'll think you're making excuses, or drunk, or having some kind of mental health crisis. And best case scenario, you get pulled off the road for evaluation. Worst case, you lose your job." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then, "This has happened to other people, hasn't it?" "You're not surprised by any of this?" "No, I'm not surprised. Scared, yeah. Confused, absolutely. But not surprised." "How many others?" I pulled out my phone, opened the group chat with Della and the others. "Let me introduce you to some people." Over the next hour, I told Victor everything. About my encounter, about Della, about the group chat and the forum posts and the decades of similar reports from this area. He listened without interrupting, his coffee growing cold in front of him. "So, this is just something that happens here," he said finally. "These lights just show up and mess with people and nobody does anything about it? What can anyone do? These things don't follow rules. They appear randomly, interact with people in different ways, and then disappear. There's no pattern we can predict, no way to study them or understand them. Someone must know something. The government, military, somebody. Maybe, probably, but if they do, they're not sharing it with people like us." Victor slumped back in his seat. "This is insane. Yeah. What am I supposed to do now? You have a few options. You can pretend it never happened, file your report, go back to work, and try to forget about it. A lot of people do that, or you can acknowledge it happened, accept that there are things in this world we don't understand, and try to move on. Or, I hesitated. Or what? Or you can try to understand it, document your experience, talk to others who've had similar encounters, look for patterns. But I'll warn you, that path is harder. It becomes obsessive. It changes how you see the world. Which path did you choose? I'm still figuring that out. We sat in silence for a while. The diner was mostly empty at this hour. Just us and a lone waitress who'd stopped caring that we'd been nursing the same cups of coffee for over an hour. I want to understand it, Victor said finally. I can't just pretend that didn't happen. That thing was real. I saw it. You saw it. If we don't talk about it, if we don't try to figure out what it is, then what's the point? I nodded. Okay, then let me add you to the group chat. You can talk to the others, compare experiences. But Victor, you need to be careful. These things are not benign. They're not here for our benefit. Whatever they're doing, whatever purpose they serve, we're just obstacles or curiosities or, I don't know, something they notice in passing. You think they're dangerous? I think anything we don't understand is potentially dangerous. And I think stopping vehicles, stealing time, following people for miles in the dark, none of that suggests friendly intentions. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. Text from my dispatcher. They're trying to reach me on the company radio, want to know my status. What are you going to tell them? That I had mechanical failure, caught a ride, and I'll provide a full report in the morning. Good. Keep it simple. Don't volunteer information they're not asking for. He nodded, typed out a response, then looked at me. Where are you headed? Salt Lake City. You? Same direction. I live in Provo. Was supposed to deliver in Ogden tomorrow morning. He laughed bitterly. Guess that's not happening now. I can drop you in Provo. It's on my way. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We left the diner, got back in my truck, and continued north. Victor was quiet, staring out the window, probably processing everything that had happened. Around 3 a.m., somewhere south of Duchesne, he spoke up. Can I ask you something? Sure. The missing time you had, during your encounter. Do you think something happened during that time? Something you can't remember? I'd been asking myself the same question for 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe. Because I've been thinking about those reports you mentioned, the ones where people got moved while they were unconscious. What if that's happening during the missing time? What if these things are taking people, doing something to them, and then putting them back with no memory of it? That's a terrifying thought. Yeah. He was quiet for a moment. Do you have any marks? Anything unusual on your body that showed up after your encounter? What kind of marks? I don't know. Scars, bruises, anything you can't explain. I thought about it. No, nothing I've noticed. Why? He hesitated, then pulled up his shirt sleeve. In the dim light from the dashboard, I could see 3 small marks on his forearm, perfectly round, like puncture wounds, arranged in a triangular pattern. I noticed these this morning, he said. Woke up with them, no idea how they got there. They don't hurt, they're not infected, just 3 perfectly spaced marks that appeared overnight. Jesus, Victor. I thought maybe I'd bumped into something, or got bit by something. But now, after seeing that light, after what you told me about other encounters, I can't help wondering if they're related. Have you shown them to a doctor? No, I mean, what would I say? Hey, doc, I think aliens gave me these weird marks. They'd probably commit me. You should still get them looked at. Could be nothing. Could be something completely unrelated to the lights. Or it could be evidence that something happened during my missing time, Something I can't remember. He pulled his sleeve back down. We drove in silence for a while. "Rowan," Victor said quietly, "I'm scared." "Yeah," I said, "me too." I dropped Victor off in Provo around 5 a.m. We exchanged numbers and I added him to the group chat with Della and the others. He thanked me again, got out of the truck, and I watched him walk to his apartment building, shoulders slumped, looking exhausted and shaken. I continued on to Salt Lake City, made my delivery, and tried to catch a few hours of sleep in my truck. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blue-white light circling above Victor's abandoned truck, heard that high-pitched whistle, felt that same pressure drop and wrongness in the air that always preceded these encounters. Around noon, my phone started blowing up with messages from the group chat. Della: "Victor told us what happened. Everyone okay?" Marcus: "That's the third incident in 2 weeks. Whatever's happening, it's escalating." Sarah: "Has anyone filed an official report to any kind of authority?" Ghost: "Bad idea. They'll just cover it up or dismiss it. Happened to a buddy of mine who saw lights over some oil fields in Texas. He reported it to the company and they grounded him for 2 weeks, sent him to psych eval. Roadrunner: "We need to document everything. Photos, videos, written accounts, build a database of encounters. Maybe we can find patterns the authorities are missing." Victor: "I checked my truck location on the company GPS. It's still where I left it. But here's the weird part. The system shows it was stationary for exactly 18 minutes before I called for help. I was standing by that truck watching the light for at least 30 minutes, maybe longer." My hands tightened on my phone. Missing time again. Me: "Victor, when you got back to your truck after we left, after the light disappeared, did it start?" I waited. Several minutes passed with no response. Then, Victor: "I didn't go back, was too scared. I'm going to wait for the recovery team to get it." Marcus: "When are they picking it up?" Victor: "This afternoon. They said they'd call me once they've examined it." I put my phone down and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing. 3 incidents in 2 weeks, all in the same general area, all involving vehicle failures, all with missing time. Whatever these things were, they were becoming more active, or more aggressive. Around 4 p.m., Victor called me. I could hear the panic in his voice before he even spoke. "They can't find it." "What?" "The recovery team. They went to the GPS coordinates where my truck should be. It's not there." "Are you sure they went to the right location?" "Positive. I gave them the exact mile marker, the GPS coordinates, everything. They said there's no truck there. No evidence a truck was ever there. No tire marks. No oil stains. Nothing." I sat up straight. "That's impossible." "I know. But they're saying there's no truck. They think I'm lying about where I left it. They're accusing me of abandoning it somewhere else and making up a story." "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That I had mechanical failure, the truck died, I had to leave it. But they're not believing me. They're threatening to fire me for losing company property." "Victor, listen to me. Don't tell them about the light. Don't mention anything unusual. Stick to your story about mechanical failure." "But my truck is gone. How am I supposed to explain that?" "You can't. There's no good explanation. But if you mention the light, if you start talking about UFOs and strange phenomena, you'll lose all credibility. Just stick to the facts. Your truck broke down, you left it, and now it's not where you left it." "They're going to fire me." "Maybe. But you'll find another driving job. This industry always needs drivers. What you can't afford to do is get labeled as unstable or unreliable. That will follow you." He was quiet for a moment. "What happened to my truck, Rowan?" "I don't know." "Do you think they took it? Whatever those lights are?" I don't know, I repeated. But I think we need to be very careful. Whatever's happening in that basin, it's bigger than equipment failures and missing time. After I hung up, I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of the impossible. A truck doesn't just disappear. 40,000 pounds of metal and cargo doesn't just vanish. Unless something takes it. I opened the group chat and typed out what Victor had told me. The responses came quickly. Della: "This is bad. This is really bad." Marcus: "Has anyone else ever reported vehicles disappearing?" I started searching through the forum archives looking for similar reports. It took me an hour, but I finally found one. A post from 2007. A rancher in the Uinta Basin reported one of his trucks missing. He'd parked it near a well site, left to check some equipment on foot, and when he came back 20 minutes later, the truck was gone. No signs of theft, no tire tracks leading away. It had just vanished. Highway Patrol investigated, suspected theft, but never found the truck. The rancher filed an insurance claim and bought a new one. 2 weeks after the truck disappeared, it reappeared in the exact same spot where it had been parked. Same condition, same fuel level, same everything. Like it had never been gone. The rancher reported this to the police, who had no explanation. The case was eventually closed as an insurance fraud attempt, even though the rancher had already been paid out and had bought a new truck. I shared this with the group. Sarah: "So these things can take vehicles and bring them back?" Ghost: "Or move them through time. Take them out of our timeline for a while, then return them." Roadrunner: "That's science fiction." Ghost: "So, are lights that stop trucks instantaneously and steal time from people. We're already in science fiction territory." Victor: "Do you think my truck will come back?" No one had an answer for that. 3 days later, Victor's truck reappeared. Not at the location where he'd left it. At a truck stop in Green River, Utah, about 120 miles south of where it had disappeared. A trucker found it in the parking lot around midnight, reported it to the facility manager, who checked the license plate and contacted Victor's company. Victor got the call around 1 a.m. They wanted him to come pick it up, provide an explanation for how it got there. He called me immediately. "I don't know what to do. How do I explain this?" "You can't. Just go get your truck. Tell them you have no idea how it got there. Be as confused as they are. They're going to fire me. Maybe. Or maybe they'll be so baffled they'll just want to close the case and move on." He drove down to Green River the next morning. I was between routes, so I met him there. The truck looked completely normal. No damage, no unusual wear, nothing to indicate it had been missing for 3 days. The cargo was still secured. The fuel tank was still half full, same as when Victor had abandoned it. We both did a walk-around inspection while his company's recovery supervisor watched. "Can you explain how this truck got here?" the supervisor asked. "You said you left it on 191, mile marker 147. That's over 100 miles from here." "I can't explain it," Victor said truthfully. "I left it where I said I left it. I have no idea how it got here. Did you give anyone else the keys?" "No." "Could someone have hot-wired it?" "I don't know how. And why would they drive it here and just leave it?" The supervisor didn't have an answer for that. He spent another 20 minutes examining the truck, checking the engine, reviewing the onboard computer logs. "According to the computer," he said finally, "this truck hasn't moved since you parked it 3 days ago. The odometer hasn't changed. The GPS tracker shows it stationary the whole time, but clearly it was moved because it's not where you left it." "I know this sounds crazy," Victor said, "but I'm telling you the truth. I don't know how it got here." The supervisor sighed. "Get in the truck, drive it back to the yard. We'll run a full diagnostic, make sure everything's working properly, and then you and I are going to have a long conversation with HR about this." Victor got in his truck. It started immediately, ran smoothly. We exchanged a look through the window, a look that said we both knew what had really happened, even if we could never prove it. I followed him back to the company yard in Provo. We didn't talk on the drive, but I kept watching his truck in my mirrors, half expecting it to disappear again. It didn't. At the yard, the mechanics went over Victor's truck for 2 hours. They found nothing wrong, no signs of tampering, no mechanical issues, no explanation for why it had died on Highway 191 or how it had ended up in Green River. The company put Victor on unpaid leave pending investigation. Not fired, but not cleared either. Limbo. We met at a diner after he left the yard. "I'm going to lose my job over this," he said. "Even if they can't prove I did anything wrong, they're never going to trust me again." "You might be right, but you did everything you could. You told the truth without sounding crazy. That's all anyone could ask for. The truth is crazy, Rowan. My truck was taken by something we can't explain, moved over 100 miles and returned with no record of the journey. That's not a truth anyone wants to hear." He was right, of course. We sat in silence for a while, picking at food neither of us really wanted. "Those marks on your arm," I said finally. "The ones you showed me. Did you get them checked out?" Victor nodded. "Saw a doctor yesterday. He said they look like injection sites. 3 perfect puncture wounds, like from a needle or similar implement." "Did he ask how you got them?" "Yeah, I told him I didn't know. He ordered some blood work, just to be safe. Should get the results back in a few days." "What do you think they were injecting? Or extracting?" I've been trying not to think about it, because every possibility I come up with is terrifying. My phone buzzed. Message from Della in the group chat. "Della, everyone needs to read this." She'd posted a link to a news article from a small Utah newspaper. The headline read, "Oil worker reported missing, found 3 days later with no memory of disappearance." I clicked through and read the article. An oil field worker named Thomas Bradford had been reported missing after failing to show up for his shift. He was found 3 days later walking along Highway 191, disoriented and unable to explain where he'd been. Bradford claimed he remembered starting his shift normally, driving out to check on some wells, and then nothing. His next memory was waking up on the side of the highway 3 days later, with no recollection of what had happened in between. Medical examination found him dehydrated and exhausted, but otherwise unharmed. He had 3 small marks on his left forearm, arranged in a triangular pattern. The article was from 2 weeks ago. Victor read over my shoulder. His face had gone pale. "Those are the same marks I have," he whispered. "I know. What does it mean?" "It means you're not alone. And it means whatever happened to you during your missing time, it's happened to others." I clicked back to the group chat. Several of the others had already started responding to Della's link. "Marcus, has anyone tried contacting this Bradford guy, seeing if he'd talk to us?" "Sarah, I found his contact info. Works for Basin Oil Services. Should I reach out?" "Della, be careful. If he's trying to move on, he might not want to revisit this." "Ghost, or he might be desperate to talk to someone who believes him." Me, "Sarah, try reaching out. But keep it casual. Don't mention our group or what we've experienced until you know he's receptive." "Victor, I want to talk to him. I need to know if his experience matches mine." Over the next few hours, Sarah made contact with Thomas Bradford through Facebook. He was wary at first, but when she carefully mentioned strange experiences in the Uinta Basin without getting too specific, he agreed to a phone call. Sarah put him on speaker with all of us listening in from our various locations. "I don't usually talk about this," Thomas said. His voice was rough, tired. "People think I made it up or had some kind of mental breakdown. But I swear on my life I'm telling the truth." "We believe you," Sarah said gently. "Some of us have had similar experiences." "With the lights?" "Yes." Thomas let out a long breath. "I've only told this to a few people. The official story is that I got disoriented in the field and wandered off. But that's not what happened." "What did happen?" Victor asked. "I was doing a routine check on well 34. Everything normal. Then I saw a light, orange-colored, hovering over well 36 about half a mile away. I got in my truck to drive over and check it out. As I got close, my truck died. Just quit. And then I don't remember anything until I woke up on the highway 3 days later." 3 days of missing time, Della said. "Yeah, and I've had dreams since then. Weird, vivid dreams that don't feel like dreams. They feel like memories." "What kind of memories?" I asked. "Being inside somewhere, a room or chamber, I don't know. Very bright. There were others there, but I couldn't see them clearly, just shapes. And I was lying down, couldn't move. Something was touching my arm right where these marks showed up." Victor pulled up his sleeve even though Thomas couldn't see him. "Did they form a triangle?" "The marks?" "Yeah, 3 points. How did you know?" "Because I have the same marks." Silence on the line. "How many of you have had encounters?" Thomas asked finally. "6 of us in this group," Sarah said. "Plus you, that's 7. And there are probably dozens more who haven't reported it or don't talk about it." "What do you think they want? These lights? Or whatever's controlling them?" "We don't know," Della said. "But based on the patterns we're seeing, they're interested in this area specifically, the Uinta Basin. They're interacting with people who work here or drive through here. And they're doing something during the missing time. Something that leaves marks." "I've been researching abduction accounts," Ghost said. "Not just local ones, but from all over the world. The triangular puncture marks show up in a lot of reports, usually described as injection sites or sampling sites." "Sampling?" Thomas said. "You mean like taking blood samples? Or tissue samples? Or DNA? Some of the accounts describe examinations, procedures, always during missing time, always leaving minimal evidence." "That's terrifying." "Yeah," Ghost agreed. "It is." We talked with Thomas for another hour, comparing details, looking for patterns, trying to understand what connected all of us. What we found was this. All of us had been in the Uinta Basin, specifically along Highway 191, or near oil field operations. All of us had encountered lights at night. All of us had experienced equipment failures. Most of us had missing time. And those of us who'd been examined medically had those same triangular marks. "There's one more thing," Thomas said before we ended the call. "Since my encounter, I've been seeing them more often. The lights. Not interacting with me, just in the distance. Watching." "Same," Victor said. "Last night I was driving through Price and I saw one. Blue-white light, maybe a mile off the highway. It was there for about 30 seconds, then vanished." "I've seen them too," I admitted. 3 times since my original encounter. Always distant, always brief, like they're monitoring something. "Or monitoring us," Della said quietly. That thought hung in the air, unspoken fear becoming spoken reality. We were being watched. Whatever these things were, wherever they came from, they hadn't lost interest after the initial encounters. They were following up, observing, tracking. Over the next few weeks, the sightings increased, not just among our group, but in the general population. Local news in Utah started reporting an uptick in UFO sightings across the Uinta Basin. Most were dismissed as drones or aircraft or the planet Venus, but the volume of reports was undeniable. Something was happening. Our group chat became more active. More people joined: truckers, oil workers, ranch hands, anyone who'd had an encounter and was looking for others who'd believe them. By the end of March, we had 23 people in the group. 23 witnesses to lights that stopped vehicles, stole time, and left marks. We started organizing the data, creating spreadsheets of encounters, mapping locations, tracking dates and times, looking for patterns that might help us predict where and when the next incident would occur. What we found was disturbing. The encounters were clustered around specific locations. Wells 14, 34, and 56 appeared in multiple reports. Highway 191 between mile markers 140 and 160 was a hotspot. And certain times seemed to be more active than others, between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. specifically. "It's like they're operating on a schedule," Marcus said during a video call with several of us. "They show up at these locations during specific time windows. Why? Maybe they're collecting data," Sarah suggested. "Taking samples from the area, from the equipment, from us, building some kind of database." "Or they're looking for something," Ghost said. "Oil, minerals, something underground that we're drilling for. Maybe they were here first and we're interfering with whatever they're doing." "That's a hell of a thought," Della said. "What if all this drilling and extraction is happening in the middle of their operation? Whatever that is. What if we're the ones in their way?" I'd been thinking about this a lot, about the correlation between increased drilling activity in the basin and the increase in sightings. The pattern was clear. More wells meant more lights. "We should present this data to someone," I said. "Authorities, researchers, someone who can do something with it." "Like who?" Victor asked. "The cops think we're crazy. The oil companies don't want bad publicity. The government has been covering this stuff up for decades. There are UFO research organizations, private groups that investigate this kind of thing. Maybe one of them would listen." "And say what?" Della challenged. "That we've got 24 truckers and oil workers reporting lights in the sky? They hear that every day. What makes our report special?" "The physical evidence," I said. "The marks, the missing time, the vehicles that disappear and reappear. That's concrete. That's not just testimony. Concrete evidence that makes us sound insane," Ghost pointed out. "Marks that could be anything. Time discrepancies that could be explained by faulty clocks or memory issues. Vehicles that could have been moved by normal means. None of it proves what we think it proves." He was right, and we all knew it. We had data, but we didn't have proof. We had experiences, but we couldn't reproduce them. We had witnesses, but no credibility, and in the meantime, the lights kept appearing. On April 3rd, a truck driver named Angela reported an encounter near Roosevelt. Orange sphere, stopped truck, 20 minutes of missing time. On April 10th, an oil worker named David saw blue-white lights circling above well 42 for 15 minutes before they shot into the sky and disappeared. On April 15th, a rancher named Patricia found one of her cattle dead in a field, with the same triangular marks on its neck that several of us had. Autopsy showed the animal had been dead for less than an hour, but had been completely drained of blood. The incidents were accelerating. And then, on April 22nd, something changed. I was driving south on Highway 191, coming back from a delivery in Vernal. It was around 11:30 p.m., clear night, no other traffic. I saw the light ahead, same as before, orange sphere hovering above the road, maybe 15 feet up. Same location where I'd encountered it the first time. My stomach dropped. Every instinct told me to turn around, take a different route, get away from that thing. But I didn't. I slowed down, rolled down my window, and grabbed my phone. This time, I was going to get evidence. This time I was going to document what happened, no matter what. The orange sphere pulsed slowly as I approached. My truck was still running normally. No sputtering, no electrical issues. Whatever had caused my engine to die last time wasn't happening now. I stopped the truck about 50 yards out, put it in park, left the engine running, held up my phone and started recording. Through the screen, I could see the orange sphere perfectly. Not washed out, not obscured. It was there, clear and bright and undeniable. I kept recording as it began to descend, just like it had before. Slowly lowering toward the road surface. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. But I kept the camera steady, documenting everything. The sphere touched the road surface and something incredible happened. It opened. Not like a door opening. More like the sphere split apart into sections that folded back on themselves, revealing what was inside. And inside was light. Pure white light. So bright I had to squint even looking at it through my phone screen. And in that light, I saw shapes. Tall, slender, moving with purpose. I counted 3 of them, maybe 4. Hard to tell because the light was so intense and my eyes were watering from the brightness. One of the shapes moved toward the opening, toward my truck. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to drop the phone, put the truck in gear, and get the hell out of there. But I kept recording. The shape emerged from the light, and I got my first clear look at what was controlling these spheres, what was taking our time and leaving marks and stealing our vehicles. It was tall, maybe 7 feet. Thin, almost skeletal. The proportions were all wrong. Arms too long, legs too long, torso too narrow. And the skin, if you could call it skin, was a grayish color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The head was large, elongated, and the eyes, God, the eyes, were huge and black and completely devoid of anything I recognized as consciousness or emotion. It took 2 steps toward my truck. I dropped the phone. Screw the evidence, screw the documentation. I grabbed the gear shift, slammed it into drive, and hit the gas. My truck lurched forward. The engine was screaming. I veered around the orange sphere, around that opening, around that thing that was walking toward me. In my mirrors, I could see it stop, turn its head to watch me go. No expression, no reaction, just those huge black eyes tracking my escape. I pushed the truck to 80 miles per hour, then 90. Didn't slow down until I was 20 miles away and my hands had stopped shaking enough that I could safely operate the vehicle. I pulled over at the next truck stop, parked, and sat there trying to catch my breath. My phone was on the floor where I'd dropped it. I picked it up with trembling hands. The video was still recording. I stopped it, checked the file. 3 minutes and 47 seconds of footage. I played it back, not sure what I'd see. The first minute showed the orange sphere hovering above the road. Clear, undeniable, exactly as I'd seen it. The second minute showed it descending. The third minute showed it opening, that bright white light spilling out. And at the 3-minute, 15-second mark, I could see the shape emerging. Tall, thin, wrong. It was blurry. The light was washing out a lot of the detail, but it was there. Visible. Real. I had evidence. I immediately uploaded the video to 3 different cloud services, emailed it to myself, and sent it to everyone in the group chat. The responses came quickly. Della. Holy shit. Marcus. You actually got footage. Sarah. Is this real? Please tell me this is real. Victor. I can see it. I can actually see one of them. ghost. Send this to every news outlet, every researcher, everyone. This is what we need. Roadrunner. Be careful. Once this goes public, there's no taking it back. Thomas, do it. People need to know. I sat in my truck for another hour, debating. This video would change everything. It would prove that what we'd been experiencing was real. It would validate every report, every testimony, every dismissed encounter. But it would also paint a target on my back. Make me the face of something I didn't fully understand. Subject me to scrutiny, skepticism, and probably ridicule. Around 2 a.m., I made my decision. I posted the video to YouTube with a detailed description of what had happened. Then I shared it on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, every social media platform I had access to. Within an hour, it had 1,000 views. Within 6 hours, 100,000. By morning, it had gone viral. Security work is boring 99% of the time. You sit in a truck or a guard shack, watch monitors, do patrol rounds, and pray nothing interesting happens. Because when interesting things happen in security, it usually means something's gone very wrong. I'm Noah Parker, 26 years old, working overnight security for Summit Energy's oil operations in Utah's Uinta Basin. Been doing it for 18 months. Before that, I did retail loss prevention in Salt Lake City, which was somehow both more eventful and less unsettling than watching empty oil fields at 3 in the morning. The basin is a strange place. During the day, it's just red rock and sagebrush stretching to the horizon, interrupted by pump jacks pulling crude from deep underground. But at night? At night, it becomes something else. The darkness is absolute. The silence is oppressive. And sometimes, just sometimes, you see things that don't make sense. Most of the time, I can explain what I see. Coyotes moving through the scrub, distant headlights from Highway 191, the occasional helicopter doing survey work, natural phenomena that look weird in the dark but have perfectly logical explanations. Most of the time. But not always. This story is about one of those times when logic failed and the natural order of things broke down for exactly 8 seconds. 8 seconds that I can't explain. 8 seconds that I can't forget. 8 seconds that changed everything. It started on a Wednesday in late April 2020. I was working the night shift with a guy named Travis Monroe. He was maybe 40, ex-military, did 2 tours in Iraq before getting out and finding work in the oil fields. Good guy, solid, the kind of person you want around when weird shit starts happening. Our job was simple. Monitor the security cameras for Summit Energy's northern sector, do patrol rounds every 3 hours, respond to any alarms or suspicious activity. We had maybe 40 wells under our watch, spread across roughly 30 square miles of empty Utah desert. The security office was a double-wide trailer parked on a gravel pad about a mile off Highway 191. Inside was a bank of monitors showing feeds from cameras at various well sites, a communication console with radios tuned to company frequencies and emergency services, a coffee maker that was always on, and 2 desks covered in paperwork neither of us ever got around to filing. Travis handled most of the radio communication. I watched the monitors and handled the digital recording system. We'd been working together for 6 months and had developed an easy rhythm. He'd make terrible coffee. I'd complain about it, but drink it anyway. And we'd pass the night trading stories and making sure nothing caught fire or got stolen. That Wednesday started like any other. I got to the office around 10 p.m., relieved the evening shift guy, checked the monitors, and settled in for another long night of watching absolutely nothing happen. Travis showed up around 10:30 with gas station sandwiches and energy drinks. "Quiet so far?" he asked, dropping into his chair. "Dead quiet. All cameras operational, all wells pumping normally, It's going to be a boring night. Good, I like boring. We ate our sandwiches and watched the monitors. 40 camera feeds, each showing a different angle of a different well site. Pump jacks moving up and down in their eternal rhythm. Shadows cast by security lights. Empty desert stretching into darkness beyond the range of the cameras. Around midnight, Travis started his first round of radio checks. Standard procedure. He'd call each well site's radio transponder, confirm it was operational, note the time in the log. Well 14, radio check. A crackle of static, then a tone indicating the transponder was active. Well 17, radio check. Another crackle, another tone. He went through all 40 wells. Everything normal. At 1 a.m. I started reviewing the camera footage from earlier in the evening, looking for anything unusual. Also standard procedure. The system recorded everything on a 48-hour loop, overwriting old footage automatically. My job was to scan through the previous shift's recordings, flag anything worth saving, and make notes for the daily report. I was about 3 hours into the previous shift's footage when I noticed something odd. Camera 16, which monitored well 34, had a gap in its recording. Not a long gap, just 8 seconds. From 7:47:23 p.m. to 7:47:31 p.m., the recording was just black. No video, no timestamp, nothing. Like someone had cut those 8 seconds out of the footage entirely. "Hey, Travis, look at this." He rolled his chair over. I played the footage leading up to the gap. Everything normal. Pump jack moving, desert landscape, security light casting shadows. Then, at exactly 7:47:23 p.m., the screen went black. 8 seconds of nothing. Then, at 7:47:31 p.m., the feed came back. Same view, same pump jack, same everything, like nothing had happened. "That's weird," Travis said. "Camera malfunction? Maybe. But look at the timestamp. It doesn't skip or jump. It goes from 7:47:23 to 7:47:31 smoothly, like those 8 seconds exist, but just weren't recorded. Could be a storage issue, corrupted file or something. Could be, but something about it bothered me. I'd been reviewing footage for 18 months and had seen plenty of technical glitches. This didn't look like a glitch. This looked deliberate. Like something had specifically prevented those 8 seconds from being recorded. I checked the other cameras looking for similar gaps at the same timestamp. Camera 22, monitoring well 41, had the same issue. 8 seconds of black from 7:47:23 to 7:47:31. Camera 35, well 56, same thing. "Travis, we've got multiple cameras with the same gap, all at the exact same time." He leaned closer, frowning. "That's not a camera issue. That's a system issue. Maybe a power fluctuation? We'd have a record of that. The system logs power interruptions automatically." I pulled up the power log. No interruptions recorded. So, what caused it? I don't know. I kept checking cameras. Out of 40 feeds, 11 had the 8-second gap, all at exactly 7:47:23 to 7:47:31 p.m. The cameras that had the gap were spread across our sector with no obvious pattern. Some were on the western edge of our patrol area, some on the eastern edge, some right in the middle. "Pull up the map," Travis said. "Let's see if there's a geographic pattern." I brought up our sector map and marked which wells had camera gaps. Travis studied it for a minute, then pointed at the screen. "Look, if you draw a line through these wells, they form a rough line, southwest to northeast, about 12 miles long." He was right. The 11 wells with camera gaps formed an almost straight line across our sector. "What runs along that line?" I asked. "Nothing. No roads, no power lines, no pipelines. It's just empty desert. We stared at the map in silence. You think something flew over? I asked. Maybe disrupted the cameras somehow. Like what? A plane? We'd have heard it. This place is dead silent at night. Helicopter? Same problem. Plus, helicopters don't knock out multiple cameras simultaneously. They'd have to be flying impossibly fast to affect 11 different locations in an 8-second window. He was right. The wells were miles apart. Even at high speed, nothing should be able to affect all of them simultaneously. Could be some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, I suggested. Lightning, electromagnetic pulse, something like that. At 7:47 p.m. I was on duty then. Weather was clear. No storms, nothing unusual. Then what? Travis didn't answer. He was staring at the monitor, at those 11 marked locations forming a line across the map. I'm going to check the radio logs, he said finally. See if anything unusual happened at that timestamp. He pulled up the communication logs on his computer. Every radio transmission, every transponder check, every emergency call was automatically recorded and timestamped. At 7:47:23 p.m., the logs showed normal operation. Transponders at all 40 wells were active and responsive. At 7:47:31 p.m., the logs showed normal operation. But between 7:47:23 and 7:47:31, there was nothing. No transponder signals, no radio chatter, no emergency frequencies. Nothing. Complete radio silence for 8 seconds. That's not possible, Travis said quietly. These systems don't just go silent. Even if there's no active communication, the transponders are constantly broadcasting presence signals. They never stop. But they did stop, I said. For exactly 8 seconds. We looked at each other. Something happened, Travis said. Something that knocked out cameras and radios across 12 miles of oil field for exactly 8 seconds. We should report this. Report what? That we had a brief technical malfunction? They'll tell us to file a maintenance request and move on. This isn't a technical malfunction, Travis. This is something else. Yeah, he agreed. But what? We spent the next hour trying to find an explanation. We checked weather reports. Clear skies, no unusual atmospheric conditions. We checked for seismic activity. Nothing registered. We checked flight patterns. No aircraft logged in the area at that time. Nothing. At 2:30 a.m., Travis decided to drive out to Well 34, the first location where we'd noticed the camera gap. Standard patrol round, he said, but I knew he wanted to see if there was any physical evidence of what had happened. I stayed in the office, monitoring the cameras, watching Travis's headlights appear on various feeds as he drove the patrol route. He reached Well 34 around 3 a.m. Noah, you seeing anything unusual on camera 16? I checked the feed. Travis's truck was parked next to the pump jack, his flashlight beam visible as he walked around the site. Looks normal to me. What are you seeing? Nothing. That's what's weird. No burn marks, no damage to equipment, no signs anything unusual happened here. Whatever knocked out the camera left no trace. He checked the camera housing, examined the wiring, inspected the solar panel that powered the security system. Everything was intact and functioning normally. It's like whatever happened didn't happen here, Travis said over the radio. It happened to the camera's signal, not to the physical equipment. How is that possible? I don't know. I'm heading to Well 41 next. I watched him drive to the second location. Same result. No physical evidence, no damage, no explanation for the 8-second gap. He was on his way to the third location when I noticed something on the monitors. Camera 9, which showed Well 23, had an anomaly in the live feed. Not a gap this time. Something else. There was a light in the sky. Small, distant, but definitely there. White, maybe with a slight blue tint. It was stationary, hovering about 45 degrees above the horizon. Travis, are you seeing this? Seeing what? Camera 9. There's a light in the sky. Static on the radio for a moment, then... Where? Eastern horizon, maybe 5 miles out. Check camera 12. You should have a better angle. I watched him pull over, presumably to check his mobile monitor. The company had equipped patrol vehicles with tablets that could access any of the camera feeds. "Yeah, I see it," he said, his voice tense. "What is that?" "I don't know. Could be a plane?" "It's not moving. Planes don't just hover." "Helicopter?" "No sound. I'd hear it from here. This place is dead silent." We both watched the light. It stayed perfectly still for maybe 2 minutes. Then a second light appeared next to it. Then a third. 3 lights, forming a perfect horizontal line in the eastern sky. "Noah, tell me you're recording this." "The system records automatically. I've got it." The 3 lights hung there, evenly spaced, absolutely motionless. They were too far away for me to make out any detail, but something about the way they glowed seemed wrong. The light was too steady, too pure. No flickering, no variation in intensity. "I'm going to drive toward them," Travis said. "Get a closer look." "Bad idea. We don't know what they are." "Exactly. That's why I'm going to check them out." I wanted to argue, but I understood his impulse. We'd just found evidence of something unexplainable happening in our sector, and now there were 3 mysterious lights hovering in the sky. The security guard in me wanted to investigate. The human in me wanted to hide. "Be careful," I said. I watched multiple camera feeds as Travis drove east, his headlights visible on cameras 17, 22, and 35. He was heading directly toward the lights. As he got closer, I could see the lights better on the camera feeds. They maintained their perfect line formation, still not moving, still glowing with that too steady illumination. Travis got within maybe 2 miles of the lights when his radio crackled. "Noah, my truck just died." "What?" "Engine quit, completely. Dash lights are out, everything's dead." My stomach dropped. "Can you restart it?" "Trying now." Silence for a long moment, then, "Nothing. It's completely dead." I checked the camera feed closest to his position. I could see his truck stopped on a dirt road, headlights off. Beyond it, those 3 lights still hung in the sky. "Travis, get out of there. Walk back if you have to, but get away from those lights." "Yeah, His transmission cut off. Not static, not interference. Just cut off mid-sentence. "Travis? Travis, do you copy?" Nothing. I cycled through cameras trying to get a better view of his truck. On camera 22, I could see him getting out of the vehicle. He was looking up at the lights. And then the camera feed went black. Not just camera 22, all the cameras. Every single feed on my monitor wall went black simultaneously. I felt my heart start pounding. "Travis, if you can hear me, respond. Travis!" The radios were silent. No static, no carrier tone, nothing. Complete silence. I checked my watch. 3:17 a.m. The monitors stayed black. The radios stayed silent. I sat there in the office alone, watching dead screens and listening to the oppressive quiet. The only sound was my own breathing and the distant hum of the coffee maker. This was exactly how the other incident had started. 8 seconds of gaps in footage and radio silence. But this time it was happening live. This time I was experiencing it in real time. I counted in my head, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. At 8 1,000, the monitors came back online. All 40 camera feeds returned simultaneously, showing their respective well sites. Everything looked normal. Pump jacks still pumping. Security lights still glowing. Desert still empty. Camera 22 showed Travis's truck still parked on the dirt road. But Travis wasn't visible. I grabbed the radio mic with shaking hands. "Travis, do you copy? Travis?" Static, then, "Noah, what the hell just happened?" Relief flooded through me. "You're okay?" "I don't know. I don't think so. Everything went dark, like someone turned off the universe for a second." "How long did it feel like?" "I don't know. A second, maybe 2. But my watch says it's 3:25. That's 8 minutes since my truck died." 8 minutes? I looked at my own watch. 3:18 a.m. "No, it's only been 1 minute. It's 3:18. Silence on the radio. "Travis, what does your watch say?" 3:25. I'm looking right at it. My watch says 3:18. So does the clock on the wall. So does the timestamp on the camera feeds. That's not possible. Unless... He trailed off. Unless what? Unless I lost time. 7 minutes that I can't account for. I felt cold. "Can you try starting your truck?" I heard the sound of a truck engine turning over, then catching. It started. Everything's working again. "Get back here. Now." "Yeah, I'm coming." I watched on the cameras as his headlights came back on, and he turned around, heading back toward the office. While he drove, I checked the recording system. The gap at 3:17 a.m. was there, just like the earlier one. 8 seconds of black screens on all 40 cameras. But this time, I knew what had happened during those 8 seconds. Travis had experienced 7 missing minutes while I'd experienced 8 seconds. Time had broken somehow. 8 seconds for me, 7 minutes for him. The same event, experienced in completely different durations. That shouldn't be possible. Travis got back to the office at 3:42 a.m. by my watch, 3:49 a.m. by his. We sat there in silence for a long moment, both of us trying to process what had just happened. "Did you see anything during the blackout?" I asked finally. "No. It's like someone hit a pause button on reality. 1 second I was standing by my truck looking at the lights. The next second I was getting your radio call. Everything in between is just gone." "The lights are gone too," I said, pointing at the monitors. "They vanished when the blackout happened." We watched the camera feeds in silence. Everything looked normal now, just 40 oil wells pumping away in the darkness, completely oblivious to whatever impossible thing had just occurred. "We have to report this," Travis said. "And tell them what? That we had missing time? That mysterious lights knocked out our systems? They'll think we're insane." "We have evidence. The gaps in the recordings. The time discrepancy between our watches. The gaps could be explained as technical glitches. The watches could be explained as one of us setting the time wrong. But we know the truth." "Yeah," I agreed. "We know, but knowing and proving are different things." Travis pulled out his phone and started typing. "There's a forum, online community of people who've had similar experiences in this area. I found it a few months ago after I saw some weird lights one night. Never posted, just read through the reports. But maybe we should share this. See if anyone else has experienced the same thing." "You've seen lights before?" "Once, back in February. Single orange light hovering over well 14. Watched it for about 30 seconds before it shot straight up and vanished. Didn't mention it because I thought you'd think I was crazy." "I wouldn't have thought you were crazy. I've heard stories from other security guys. Weird lights are common out here. Have you seen any?" I shook my head. "Not until tonight." Travis found the forum on his phone and showed it to me. It was called Uinta Phenomena Database, and had hundreds of posts from people reporting unusual events in the basin. Lights in the sky, equipment failures, missing time discrepancies, strange sounds, unexplained phenomena of every variety. The posts went back years, decades even. People had been seeing weird things in this area for a long time. "Post it," I said. "Maybe someone else has experienced the same thing. Maybe we can find a pattern." Travis created an account and wrote up a detailed description of what had happened, including the timestamps, the camera gaps, the radio silence, the 3 lights, and our time discrepancy. He posted it at 4:07 a.m. By 5 a.m. we had 20 responses. Most were people saying they'd experienced similar phenomena: lights in the sky, missing time, equipment failures. Several specifically mentioned seeing lights arranged in geometric patterns, lines, triangles, perfect circles. One response stood out. A user named Desert Watcher wrote, "3 lights in a horizontal line. I've seen that exact formation. November 2019, same area. They appeared at 11:47 p.m., hovered for about 4 minutes, then vanished. During those 4 minutes, all radio communication in the area went silent, and several people reported time discrepancies. Some lost minutes, some lost hours. One person claims they lost 3 days. 3 days of missing time." I felt sick. Travis was reading the same post. "This has happened before," he said quietly. "Multiple times. This is a pattern." We kept reading responses. More people chimed in with their experiences. By 6 a.m., we had over 50 responses, all describing variations of the same phenomenon: lights in formation, equipment failures, radio silence, time discrepancies, and every single report came from the Uinta Basin. "Whatever this is," I said, "it's specific to this location. People aren't reporting this from Denver or Las Vegas or anywhere else. Just here. Why here? I don't know. Oil drilling, geology? Maybe there's something about this area that attracts these things or makes them visible. Or maybe they were here first," Travis suggested. "Maybe we're the intruders." That thought hung between us like a weight. Our shift ended at 7 a.m. The day crew arrived, and we did the handoff. We mentioned the technical glitches with the cameras and radios, but didn't mention the lights or the time discrepancies. What could we say that wouldn't make us sound insane? I drove home as the sun rose over the basin, turning the landscape from sinister darkness to mundane desert. By daylight, everything looked normal, safe, explainable. But I knew better now. Something was out there in the darkness. Something that could manipulate time and electronics and reality itself. Something that operated by rules we didn't understand, and it had been here for a long time. Over the next few days, Travis and I kept monitoring the forum. The response to our post grew. More people shared their experiences and patterns began to emerge. The lights always appeared at night, typically between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. They usually formed geometric patterns, lines, triangles, grids. They typically hovered for several minutes before either vanishing or shooting away at impossible speeds. Equipment failures were common during sightings. Vehicles, radios, cameras, anything electronic seemed vulnerable. And time discrepancies were reported in about 40% of encounters. Never large gaps. The longest reported was 18 minutes, but consistent. Some people experienced the event in real time while others nearby lost minutes or hours. One user, who claimed to be a physicist, proposed a theory. If these objects generate some kind of intense electromagnetic field or gravitational distortion, it could theoretically affect the local flow of time. Different distances from the source would experience different rates of temporal passage. It's the same principle as gravitational time dilation, but localized and intense. I didn't understand half the words, but the basic idea made sense. Whatever these lights were, they were warping time around them. On Saturday night, 4 days after our encounter, I was back at work. Travis had the night off, so I was working with a guy named Kyle who was filling in. Kyle was young, maybe 22, new to the job. He'd only been working security for about a month. Around midnight, he was doing his radio checks when he stopped and called me over. "Hey Noah, listen to this." He keyed the radio for well 56. Instead of the normal response tone, we heard something else, a sound like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like wind, but electronic, like white noise, but structured. It lasted about 3 seconds, then cut off. "What was that?" Kyle asked. "I don't know, try it again." He keyed the radio, same strange sound. "That's not right," I said. "Check the other wells." Kyle went through the radio checks. Wells 1 through 49 responded normally. Well, 56 made that weird sound. Wells 57 through 62 responded normally. I pulled up camera 56 on my monitor. Everything looked normal. Pump jack working, security light on, no visible anomalies. "Maybe it's a malfunction in the transponder," Kyle suggested. Maybe, but I didn't think so. Well, 56 was one of the locations that had experienced the 8-second gap, and it was along that line of affected sites we'd mapped out. I was about to suggest we drive out there when all the monitors went black. Not flickering, not gradually fading, just instant blackness across all 40 screens. "What the hell?" Kyle said. The radios went silent. Complete dead air. I looked at my watch, 12:17 a.m. "Here we go again," I muttered. "What?" "Just watch. 8 seconds from now, everything will come back online." "How do you—" The monitors came back at 12:17:08. All 40 feeds returned simultaneously. Kyle was staring at the screens with wide eyes. "What just happened?" "Something that happens sometimes in this area. Technical glitch." I didn't want to scare him with the truth. But when I looked at camera 56, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There were 3 lights in the sky above well 56. Small, distant, but visible. Arranged in a perfect horizontal line. The same formation Travis and I had seen. "Kyle, look at camera 56. He looked, saw the lights. "What are those?" "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." As we watched, the 3 lights began to move. Not toward us, but along that same line we'd mapped out. Moving from southwest to northeast, following the exact path of the 11 wells that had experienced the camera gap. They moved slowly, deliberately, staying in perfect formation. As they passed over each well site, the camera monitoring that site would go black for exactly 8 seconds. We watched this happen at well 34. Lights approached, camera went black, lights moved on, camera came back online. Then, well 41, same pattern. They were working their way northeast along the line, systematically passing over each affected well site. "Should we do something?" Kyle asked. "Like what?" "I don't know. Report it? Call someone?" "Who are we going to call? By the time anyone gets here, they'll be gone." The lights continued their path. Well after well, camera after camera going black as the formation passed overhead. Then I realized something. "Kyle, what time is it?" He checked his watch. 12:23. I checked mine. 12:31. "Your watch is 8 minutes behind mine." "No, it's not. I said it this morning. It's been keeping perfect time all day." But my watch also kept perfect time. Both of us couldn't be right. The time discrepancy had started again. The lights continued northeast until they reached the end of the line at well 62. Then they stopped, hovering in perfect formation maybe 2 miles from our office. I could see them through the office window now, not just on the monitors. 3 points of white light with that slight blue tint hanging motionless in the night sky. "What do we do?" Kyle whispered. "We watch, and we document everything." I started recording with my phone, filming through the window. Kyle did the same. We kept our eyes on those 3 lights, waiting to see what they would do next. They hung there for maybe 3 minutes. Then, simultaneously, they shot straight up into the sky. Not gradually accelerating, just instant speed, 0 to gone in maybe half a second. They left brief trails of light that faded quickly. And then they were gone. The night returned to normal. The pump jacks kept pumping. The monitors showed empty desert. The radios crackled with normal background static. I checked my watch. 12:34 a.m. "What time do you have?" I asked Kyle. 12:26. 8 minutes. The same discrepancy as before. We'd both experienced the same event, but at different rates. For me, it had lasted about 22 minutes from the initial blackout to the lights disappearing. For Kyle, it had lasted 14 minutes. 8 minutes of time that existed for me but didn't exist for him. Or maybe 8 minutes that existed for him but didn't exist for me. Maybe his time was the correct one, and I'd somehow lived through 8 extra minutes that hadn't actually happened. There was no way to know which of us was experiencing time correctly. "Noah, what the hell is going on here?" I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain something that makes no sense? How do you rationalize the irrational? "I don't know," I said finally. "But I think we just saw something we're not supposed to see. Something that's been here a long time, operating just outside our normal perception. Are they aliens? Maybe. Or maybe there's something else, something we don't have words for yet." We spent the rest of the shift reviewing the camera footage, documenting everything we could about the incident. The 8-second gaps at each well site. The systematic movement of the lights. The time discrepancy between Kyle's watch and mine. At 7 a.m., when the day shift arrived, we filed a report about technical issues with the camera system. We didn't mention the lights. We didn't mention the time discrepancy. What could we say that wouldn't end with us getting fired or committed? But I uploaded the phone footage to the forum, and within hours, the response was overwhelming. Dozens of people reported seeing the same 3 lights on the same night. Not just in our sector, but across the entire Uinta Basin. All moving in the same pattern. All causing the same 8-second blackouts. All creating time discrepancies for observers. Whatever these things were, they weren't isolated incidents. They were coordinated, systematic, purposeful, and they were everywhere. It's been 3 weeks since that night. I still work security in the basin. Travis is still my usual partner. We see the lights sometimes, distant and brief. But we've stopped reporting them. Stopped trying to document them. Because we've learned something important. These things don't want to be documented. Every time someone gets clear footage, the file corrupts. Every time someone tries to report it to authorities, the report gets lost or dismissed. Every time someone pushes too hard for answers, they get transferred or fired or convinced they were mistaken. The phenomenon protects itself somehow, maintains its secrecy, operates in the shadows of human awareness. But there are those of us who know, who've seen, who've lost 8 seconds or 8 minutes or 8 hours to something we can't explain. We find each other online, share our experiences, compare notes, build our private database of encounters that the official world refuses to acknowledge. And we watch the skies over the Uinta Basin, knowing that somewhere up there, beyond the reach of our cameras and radios and understanding, something is watching us back. Something that moves through time differently than we do. Something that sees our world from a perspective we can't comprehend. Something that, for reasons of its own, chooses to remain just outside our ability to prove its existence. 8 seconds might not seem like much time, but it's enough time for reality to break. Enough time for the impossible to happen. Enough time to change everything you thought you knew about the world. I still work nights in the basin, still watch those monitors, still do those radio checks. But now I know what I'm really watching for. Those gaps, those silences, those 8-second windows when the normal rules stop applying. Because that's when they're here, that's when they're watching, that's when 8 seconds becomes forever.